My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
And you're listening to Watch Out for Fireballs. It is a Games Club podcast.
And this week we're talking about Lunacid, which is a first-person RPG developed and published by Kira LLC in 2023.
Yeah. You play as a criminal in this game. You're in a world that ended after this great beast woke up and melted the fucking moon and filled the world with poisonous fog. And that might sound familiar to you.
Mm-hmm.
You're exiled to the Great Well for crimes, and you have to find a way to escape.
Yes. Your body's been dumped down there, and it's a whole civilization. One might call it an ancient city.
Yes, it is an Underdark of sorts.
Yeah.
And this is a unique and special thing because this is a Kingsfield alike.
Yes.
A subgenre that does not exist but should. We live in a post Dark Souls world where Dark Souls isn't everything now.
Yeah.
However, before Dark Souls, if you don't know, FromSoft made a bunch of games, Kingsfield and Shadow Tower, that are basically this.
Yeah.
And we're huge fans. If you only listen to Watch Out for Fireballs, you may not get a lot of this. But we've covered these games on Bonfireside Chat.
Yes.
As well.
Yeah. So we did the first Kingsfield that came here in America. It's Kingsfield 2 in Japan over on Bonfireside Chat, episodes 152 and 153. Those are in the premium seasons. However, if you want to hear about other ones that are in the free seasons, we did Kingsfield 4, The Ancient City, in episode 30 through 33, and then Shadow Tower in 84 and 85, and Shadow Tower Abyss in 87, 88. We've done deep dives into a lot of these, not all of them,
Yes.
but we've adored all of them that we've played except for Eternal Ring.
Yes, and that's the most modern PS2 one and feels bad.
Yes.
There's only one of them we haven't, the Kingsfield 2 US, which is also one of my least favorites.
Yeah.
That I played. So I don't mind that we haven't done that. Regardless of which, this is a more faithful, a little bit more modernized and friendlier in subtle ways take on this formula, but it is Kingsfield.
Yes.
It is the first thing. And when I say this is a subgenre that doesn't exist, it kind of does. There have been a couple of like proc gen bullshit things. And to me, that is, this isn't just railing its proc gen. I think that is somebody looking at the maps in Kingsfield games and being like, oh, this is just so much of Paschetti. Like you could just scramble this up. It could be anything. And that's not true.
No, not at all.
It has never been true.
Couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these, this is taking the same kind of care in spaces for it. Like this is the most successful Kingsfield that stands with a bunch of the Kingsfields to me.
Yeah. I still think that Kingsfield 4, The Ancient City is one of the best games of all time. And if you have the stomach for it, go and play that in an emulator or what have you. But like starting with this and getting a taste for it before you go back and fight interface and controls and stuff, that also is acceptable. Like this game is a triumph. And it feels like it is addressing a grave injustice, which is the memory holding of Kingsfield.
Yes. Not the least of which by From.
Yeah.
I put this up with Kingsfield, a little bit under Kingsfield 4 and around with Kingsfield 1, Shadow Tower 1.
Yeah.
In my kind of ranking. What makes a Kingsfield is worth talking about because most gamers don't know. It's not a popular type of game. So it is a first person role-playing game, basically. You move and do combat very slowly and deliberately.
Yes.
You have to charge up your attacks. You can attack, usually as fast as you click the button, but you will do no damage. You have to charge them. The more you hold, the more powerful you are.
Right.
For this.
Up to a certain point, you can't just hold one button for the entire game.
Just
get to the end boss and fucking
one shot
grand slam them.
Yeah. Incredible. That's a good idea for like a Ludum Dare kind of thing. Like you can get through the whole game without attacking. You charge the whole game. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's a seed. But you have the little meter.
Yes. It's real time. This is an action RPG series. So this is distinct from your Legends of Grimrock or Bard's Tale kind of things, right? You have access to
those are real time as well. This is distinct from like Eye of the Beholder.
Yes. Yeah.
Grimrock is real time.
Right. So you get access to both melee and ranged weapons, along with spell rings that cast from a mana pool. The spells also have like a charge time and wind up, but it's kind of the reverse of what the attack ones are.
Yeah. You have a mana meter as well. The spells also, damaging but there's tons of utility spells as well that you can equip.
No.
There's not builds or classes in this. You start, similar to Dark Souls, you start with a class, but you are encouraged to dabble. I'm sure once you've done this game once, you could be more of a specialist in this. But like my first playthrough of any of these games, I dabble like hell.
Yeah.
And that's how I played through this, and I was well rewarded for it.
Yeah, you're gonna want to cast spells because like there's some doors that only open to certain elements, or
you have to cast.
Yeah,
there are some mandatory spells.
Yeah. The combat gets complicated by the need, complicated in this game, by the need to vary up your damage types, both in weaponry, you have slashing, blunt, piercing, things like that, and spells for your elements. This is present to small degrees, and other things. Here it feels very pronounced.
It's super pronounced, but it avoids something that I don't like, which is just, I like this game, but it's a thing I don't like about, like, say, Vagrant Story. The feeling of constantly juggling with your key ring. In this, like, there's no pause. When you have to change things, you have to change it in real time here.
Yeah.
And because of that consideration, there are ways to brute force a lot of this stuff. Like, you can be safe and steady, doing 10% of the damage of an enemy. It might take a little bit longer, but I ended up with these good situations where I had to very, very carefully fight an enemy because I did not have time to switch equipment.
Yeah.
To figure out what they're weak against. There's also like a fairly simple, this can kind of be boiled down to magic and not magic in a lot of ways too. Like if something is immune to magic, they won't be immune to physical things and vice versa.
Yeah.
Through this, you can, this to the degree that you want to engage with this, you can, I guess is my point. Like it is prominent and it makes the play optimal, and this is more of a general thing we'll get into later. This game isn't hard.
Yeah. That's important.
The way that the other, and this is something, a minor demerit for me. I wish this was a little bit harder. Is a big difference because the Ancient City, Kingsfield, those games are hard.
Yeah.
This is not hard.
No. Those games have like instant death traps, right? Famously in Kingsfield 4, if you walk straight forward from where you spawn in, you will land in lava and die.
Yes.
So, this is not hard. The weapon switching kind of stuff, the fact that you only have 2 that you can switch between at any given time really made me wish for some kind of, I don't know, like controller cord that I could press to like switch between sets. Right.
It would have been nice to have it too, but also your character only has one hand.
Yeah.
Like it makes sense for them to only be able to carry so many things through this. That would have been really cool. I ended up liking getting in those situations.
Yeah.
Those like, shit, I need to switch. I maybe need to run back to a safe area because nothing I'm doing is working.
Yeah. I didn't make a note of this, but you can also defend yourself in this. Like there's a shield item you can get, but like when you're picking your weapons, the defensive capability is one thing that you can consider. I pretty much YOLO'd it and worked through evasion more than blocking.
I didn't block once.
Yeah.
But you can block. And when I said you had one hand, that's not a joke. You narratively get your hand cut off, so you cannot have a shield and a weapon up.
Right.
When you have a shield, you use that as a weapon or you block with it. Weapons actually have a bunch of interesting stats in this.
Yeah.
They have stats for how much you kind of dash forward, how much they'll shove, things like that. So you are looking at a lot of different things when you're choosing between weapons.
Yeah.
For this. And that little dash forward is really important because you are using attacks as part of that dodge.
Yeah.
It's this weird thing where it's not hard and everything is very slow, but when you're very slow and the enemy is very slow, it ends up like you're at equity with that. And then when they make an enemy a little bit faster, it feels very serious.
Yes.
Even if they would be like absolutely molasses speed by Doom standards.
Yeah. Or not even by Doom standards, by Dark Souls standards, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Lunacid also adds a system for damaging individual body parts on game's enemies, which is good. You know, you can disarm somebody literally. There are also enemies that are shielded from certain attack angles as well. This is done very well and communicated very well. Like the first enemies that you fight, kind of in the newbie cave in this, are snails. And they don't take a lot of damage from behind because that's shell, dummy.
Yeah, you got to hit them in the head, and then their head falls off.
Yeah.
And yet they live. Sometimes when an enemy's head falls off, it spouts blood. For the rest of the time it's alive. That's great.
Yeah.
This is really fun.
Yeah.
There's a system called Lunacy in this, which is kind of an all-purpose corruption. In this, it's a little bit like character tendency in Demon Souls. The longer you go between stopping at a checkpoint to heal, and the more you cast spells, you have lunacy that builds up.
Yes.
But lunacy is not super scary.
No.
In this, it's actually kind of good. You take more damage when you have high lunacy, but you also do more damage with magic and get more XP.
Right.
And it's worth noting again, we talk about the ease of this game. You're going to gain a lot of levels. You know, this is a really interesting combination of like actually easy but very obtuse. You know, you have this build system that feels very complicated, and you can feel like, oh shit, I've been speccing for strength, but now you're asking me to switch weapons to magic. That's ridiculous. But you will, next time you go back to your bonfire, you'll probably have 10 levels to spend, and also you get so many levels, you're fine.
Yeah, this is
it's not a hard game.
It's a 16-hour game, and I ended up at like level 90 or something.
Yes, yeah, it's ludicrous. Like, and again, it's a minor ding. I wish it was a little bit harder, but it's not. I'm saying that so it doesn't put people off, because so far the stuff we talked about doesn't sound good in some ways. Like, oh, you know, there's this damage type stuff.
Yeah.
One of the things I was thinking about was justifying my love of this with my dislike of things that do similar things to this, and how much it challenges my vibe aversion, because like so much of it is nailing atmosphere.
Yeah.
Not entirely, you know, but nailing atmosphere. And then I also think nailing exploration.
That's the huge thing. That has always been the appeal of this series to me, more so than the combat. Like the combat is interesting and cool, but it is not the primary appeal. And I think making this a little bit easier, whether or not it was intentional, actually does make
like
this
de-emphasizes that.
Yeah, it de-emphasizes that. It makes it easier to recommend to people.
Yes.
You know, to get a taste of the thing that I really value in this, right?
Right. Like you go into it, you're expecting Skyrim combat. Like it's not that. And like it's easy, and there's not that much of it. You know, this all ties into this like world design exploration loop that it has, where the most important relationship in this game is between you and nothing, you know, you and what's unknown, the edges of the map, with that. And like one thing, just because I don't know exactly where to put this, the enemies are really sparse. That's so brave. Like I can't remember the last time I played a game where like you'd have stretches without guys.
Yeah.
You know, it just like it's a totally night and day game. But just it's the first thing that pops in my head. It was a thing that bugged me about Dead Space. Like it was constantly just every single couple seconds.
Yeah.
You know, one of these things would come out. You get downtime that adds tension in this. You do a fight and you go through hallways for a long time, a suspiciously long time, trying to explore without a guy, without adversaries. You're still mapping, you're still playing. You know, you're trying to keep track of the space, you're exploring, you're looking for secrets, but you're not fighting.
Yeah.
You know, it is taking a wider part of the fantasy of dungeoneering and emulating it. You know, look at Real Lich Hours, like we talk about Baldur's Gate, emulating all parts of the fantasy. You know, this is not just a game about combat.
No.
To
its benefit, right?
Very much so.
Yeah. So when we talk about that, you know, world design and exploration loop, we should talk about the way that these spaces present. The maps are really large. They're labyrinthine. They can feel anonymous when you are first in them, but you got a compass, and suddenly as you're going through, it feels big and scary. but things just start making sense the way that it fits together. There's no in-game map. This game, along with its forebears, demand that you internalize these spaces. You're paying attention to landmarks, and you're making slow but steady progress at the edges into places that you haven't been before. Getting this tension build up, maybe finding some new enemies until you find someplace new, or things snap into place when you find a shortcut. You reach a door with a lever and you open it up, and then suddenly you're in a familiar place. Oh, I'm back here. And that loop that I just did, okay, I see how this fits in. And everything just kind of, ends up working out, and you have more of the space inside your head, right?
The maps are complicated, but also a little simpler than they initially appear.
Yeah.
And do more loops.
Yeah.
Than you might think. There are more things that feel very, very complicated, but ultimately are a big circle that has some diverticule off it, but will ultimately lead you back to where you started.
Mm-hmm.
So it can feel like you're going on forever and make you feel lost, but the aha mastery part of this game is realizing that you weren't lost, like you knew it. Also, if you're like a mapping sicko, this game would be great. Like some people love just making maps, the games they play. Like this game would be wonderful for it.
Yeah.
Like I would love to just like dig through somebody's hand-drawn maps of this game. That'd be really fun.
My maps are fucking dog shit on this. And it was more just like, okay, this vaguely connects to this room. I was just writing down the direction relations.
Plant north.
Or just like, oh, okay, garden. Here's a garden. All right, this is an aqueduct tunnel. It was just kind of like that, rather than any actual detail about like the topography of it, right? Yeah, but that was enough because everything else worked. Yeah.
I played this on Steam Deck, so I didn't write anything down. But Russ, if you're like me, if you don't like making notes, you don't have to.
Yeah.
The aha moment will happen for you as you figure this stuff out.
Yes.
Part of this, and this is worth noting because I don't know where else necessarily to put this. So it's a little bit of a side point to this, but part of the reason why that's okay, and something that I find kind of unique in games that I think would be bad in another game, like it sounds like something I would complain about in another game. So many of these areas don't have a climax.
Yeah.
You go into these areas, sometimes they lead into new areas. Sometimes those new areas lead somewhere you need to go. Often they don't.
Yeah.
You are exploring to explore, and sometimes you get to the end of an area and then you're like, well, that was a dead end. All I got was equipment and experience. But really the answer is, oh shit, I got equipment and experience.
Yeah.
Oh, let's go check out somewhere else. Like that's what I'm doing here. The actual exploration loop charges the power curve to allow you to move forward in the actual critical path once you find it in a way that is like really elegant and guides you. Like it feels like it would be very difficult to accident. Like I kind of stumbled on the end of this, but I only had a couple areas left.
Yeah.
You can't stumble on it too early.
No.
You're going to do this exploration pushing at the edges that is just going to make you strong enough. And that feeling of getting to the end of a spoke never felt like, sometimes it'll loop back to an earlier area you can go to, but it never felt bad. I never felt like, oh, there's no boss at the end of this. I'm mad. I just felt like, oh, well, I heard, where's that other thing I didn't check out?
Yeah.
Let's go there.
Oh, I remember this door. Yeah.
And it's always there. You always have something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, I could check this out.
It's not the way video game levels are designed.
No.
At all.
It's really refreshing.
Yeah.
Like there are two bosses in this game. There are mini bosses, but there are two actual bosses in the game.
Yeah.
It's not a thing where you're going to have this, I fought the raider leader at the end of Borderlands and got a leveled piece of loot.
Yeah.
It's more like I'm going to sneak in this semi-hostile area that is full of secrets and some hazards, and there's stuff there if I can find it.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to get out and get back to it, the critical path.
Yeah, it's there for the taking. And it's weird to call this refreshing because this is actually just the way a lot of games used to be made, right? But like I like it in there too. Go and listen to our episode about Ultimate Underworld, a game I fucking adore, right? Like it's kind of same vibe, same energy.
Yeah. That does that really well. It's also what people bemoan when they talk about missing Zelda 1. As a thing. And the trick about that is that when you fuck it up so hard.
Oh God.
you're carrying a chandelier, like on your head.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like when you fuck up so loud with this kind of thing, but this game doesn't do it.
Mm-hmm. Weird metaphor, but I'll take it.
I don't know where that came from. Chandelier Man, this character I've been working on since I was a kid, workshopping, I can't get him off the ground. There are visual landmarks in there. One of the things also that they do is enemies. So like corpses, you know, like, oh, I'm running into new enemies. Therefore I am on a right path.
Yeah.
Because I'm somewhere I haven't been before. Enemies only reset when you warp or when you die. They don't reset just from resting at bonfires, unlike most Souls-like DNA games. So you can rest at a crystal and then just be like, okay, I don't know which way to go, but this one is full of corpses, so I know I've been here. Even if it might look the same, even if the landmark, you know, the plants or the fountains or graves or whatever, don't look super familiar.
Yeah,
to me.
Yeah. This chest is open. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
These crates are broken. Cool. All right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's there are ways to keep track of it even beyond the special item that you get, those banners that you can use to mark where you've been. Right.
The banners bum me out a little bit because they disappear when you warp or die.
Yeah, that's a problem.
I was like, they shouldn't disappear when you warp.
Right.
I should be able to kind of affect the world that way, but so I didn't use those as much as I wanted to. But it is a good idea.
Yeah.
For that. So, you're going through, you're very lonely. You're in the middle of nowhere. It feels dangerous even when it's not.
Yeah.
And then you just discover something. You walk into a room you could not find. There's a lot of verticality.
Yes.
These maps, you see a ledge and you're like, you know what? I bet you I can get up there if I do X and Y. And you do, and it opens up a whole new area.
Yeah.
It's one of the better feelings in games.
Yeah. I want to bottle it.
Yep. Me too.
That verticality and some of the ways that you can approach the maps unconventionally is helped by spell abilities that you get that can break the world design in fun ways. I want to take the coffin spell from this and put it in every game. Just literally a spell that you can cast.
Unlimited coffins on demand.
Yeah, I've got hot and cold running coffins.
Coffins, just the ones with the bodies falling out. Like there's literally a spell that makes a coffin appear as a physics object that you can do forever. And try to make, they don't stack up perfectly. Like you're not Minecrafting.
Yeah.
You're making janky little towers you can barely climb. But if you're determined, you will fucking do it.
Yeah, with that and a good enough dexterity stat to boost your jump, like there are a lot of places you can go.
You can jump and then put a coffin under you. So like kind of like this janky bomb jump almost through this. Coffin's really good. There's also other, like any spell that seems like it would work that way does.
Yeah.
Like before I got coffin, I got one that puts up a little earth barrier, and the description for it, he says it's going to be a wall to like give you cover. And I just had a thought, like, I wonder if I can climb that thing, like the edges a little bit at an angle and like put it next to an area I wanted up to, and I could.
Yeah.
It's a very permissive game.
Yeah.
In that way.
So like Kingsfield, we've got secret doors, we have illusory walls. And they're here. You're going to need to check the walls. Something Lunacid does to make that a little bit easier on you is that when you are near one, you have to be pretty near it, but a little question mark indicator will come up. So you don't have to like walk around like this is Wolfenstein, pressing the action button, hoping that the wall opens.
On every single wall.
Yeah.
You do want to hug a wall to look for these. There are also, subtle visual indicators for some of them. Like if it looks like something or that's a suspicious dead end.
No.
You'll find them. It does the illusory wall behind illusory wall trick, which I always like.
Yeah.
The question mark is really important.
Yeah.
Because it would be tedious. This is the action button. It would also, that would be tedious if there were more monsters.
Yes.
Like one of the things that I think that makes this game really special is how many things synergize. Those long stretches of loneliness that you're in synergize really well with looking out for secret passages.
Yes.
That synergizes really well with very low monster density. Like there's a lot of kind of force multiplying factors in this.
And also like you become fluent in the level design of this game, as you go. Like you have internalized enough of these spaces, you understand how things connect together, that you get that sense of like there should be something there. Like there's space for something there. Yeah.
Yes. Even if you don't actually have a map where you can look at the big blank space, you don't need it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are closed doors. You'll find keys, things. There are levers. They'll open doors in certain places. There are also mirages. These are one-way doors that can be dispelled. These are almost always shortcuts back to the beginning of an area. All very useful.
Yes.
The beginning of the area almost always has a checkpoint through these crystals. These crystals you can level up, you can warp around, and you have to manually save.
Yes.
Through this. There's no autosave. If you die, you lose progress. And I have lost a bunch of progress in this game a couple times. It does the thing where that does feel bad and is immediately demoralizing, but the space is actually so much smaller than I thought it was once you know it, that I can rush back to where I was. Like there's no bloodstain to pick up or anything, but I can rush back and regain that progress quicker than I thought.
You just have to remember to save. Yeah.
Yes.
So you mainly save, and it might seem, okay, so only one checkpoint per level. Remember I was talking about those loops and the shortcuts. Every level is pretty much made to where you're like investigating lobes of it that are then cut off. And then you like get back to where this checkpoint is. And there's almost always a direct path from the checkpoint to wherever the next place is that you unlock by going to all those different wings, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
As we mentioned, enemies won't respawn just from resting. It's only if you warp away or reload the area. Crystals where you level up. You get lots of levels. Each level gives you skill points you can spend in your attributes. The attributes do what you think they will do. There is a speed and a dex one that they're slightly separate. One is for jumping and range damage, and one is for movement speed. Both of which are jumping and movement speed are both broadly very useful defensively, even though I think you probably could do a tankier build in this and probably get away just leveling your defense, which is what they call health in this.
Resistance is not entirely useless in this. A lot of enemies will do status effects on you. It's really common, and that shortens the amount of time that those are active on you.
Yes. Enemies drop money. They drop little C's for silver. That you can spend on various items. There's a couple merchants. You spend these on potions. There are a few weapons you can buy, like early game weapons. And use this. And you also find things that you find around. This is another little ding. I'm always going to call out the dings, even things I love. Like this is like a 9 out of 10 game for me, but they're still dings. Enemies drop materials and containers and plants around contained materials. And there's an alchemy system in this. I don't like this.
No.
I don't like the chore of killing every plant. I don't like the interface for it because it's really slow and you can't craft multiple things at once.
Right.
And there are a lot of hidden things that require this trial and error system that just the interface takes too long.
Yes.
To do it. I wish this wasn't here.
I don't enjoy it. I did not use it really, mostly because like there are so many individual items that you can get that I never had enough of anything to actually make something.
If you once you start killing plants, the game very transparently in a penultimate area, like just absolutely turbo loads it with plants that give you the healing reagents. And I went back and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to craft a bunch of healing things. And I didn't end up using them. Like I ended the game with like 25 healing potions, that I did not need through this. I wish this was not here. But you are constantly finding, as you mentioned, items around. You're also finding, and it's worth noting, like healing potions is not Estus. These are limited resources. Plants will respawn once you reload an area. So you could technically farm for any of these things. I think this is another thing that I think cooperates with the game being easy. If this game was really hard and I was incentivized to like literally go on farming runs, that sucks. It was like the worst part of Bloodborne. It's the worst part about any game that involves it, except for Stardew. Like you shouldn't be farming in games other than Stardew. You constantly get new weapons to play around with. There are no stat requirements, but each one has a wide array of properties. As you mentioned, not just the elemental type, but things like, range damage, how much it pushes you forward, things like that.
Each of these feels pretty different from the others. which is really nice, because when we talk about this combat being slow and deliberate, it is also like you testing your range against the enemy's attacks. And trying to get into advantageous position. Things like the swing direction and the range and how much it pushes you back versus how much it pushes them back, those factor in. And the most optimal damage is not necessarily the one that you're going to want to settle on.
Yeah, and not least of which, because some won't work on some enemies. You can have 2 weapons equipped at a time, and generally you want to have 2 different types.
Yes.
Set up. I will say there's more weapons than I needed. In this, there are tons of weapons I didn't even touch in this, and that's fine. Some weapons can be leveled up. They can only be leveled up once.
There are some that can be leveled up 2 times.
Are
3
there?
times.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did not find any of those.
Like the club can turn into an iron club, can turn into a steel club or something like that.
Yeah. Gotcha. I just didn't end up using that one. I had something else. But these, you can tell which ones these are because they have an XP bar. Once the XP is full, you can dip them in these oil at your hub area at the Smith's Grave, turn them into a new weapon. Coffins count as enemies. So that coffin thing is a way to level up all your weapons really quick if you want to. You can just spam making tons of coffins and then just smash them all up.
I'm helping.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Fuck this funeral home.
And this is worked in, sometimes the item that you get, that you start with is useful on its own. Other times there are very obvious kind of Magikarp items. You find a broken sword hilt that if you, run around and hit stuff and level up with it, it'll turn into this really powerful flaming sword, which not only does a bunch of damage, will catch enemies on fire and also acts as a light source.
Weapons that count as light sources are huge in this game, actually. It's a dark game. It is this recreation of Kingsfield and Shadow Tower, and that's foggy and very dark. You want to have a source of light, and you don't want to be switching between being able to see and being able to attack. Having your character have their hand cut off in the beginning is such a smart design choice in this. Justifying why you can't do both. And it sounds like it's going to be frustrating, but you have some spells to get around it, and it makes those weapons really valuable. Like I had the torch, which does level up, and I ended up using it in areas where it was suboptimal because I didn't have to swap, through it. Visually, like this is very much like Kingsfield and Shadow Tower, largely in the enemy design. The monsters look menacing and weird, but some of them are also goofy and sometimes cute. In this, that is a really special combination.
You can just tell that Kira loves these games for similar reasons that we do, which is nice. And the aesthetics are also a big part of selling the kind of loneliness and strangeness of the spaces you're going through too, right?
Very much so.
I fucking love this soundtrack, Gary, with all my heart.
It's really good. I kept comparing it to The Ancient City, which is not fair because it's one of the best soundtracks of all time. I think this accomplishes everything it needs to do. It's not as catchy. I wish that there were more songs that were strangely upbeat. Which is my favorite thing that happens in the Ancient City soundtrack. Like you'll be in a scary area and the soundtrack's like dinga 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 dinga. It sounds like it's from Donkey Kong. And it's like that dichotomy is really valuable to me. There's nothing in this that does that. But it is a really good soundtrack.
Several composers contributed to it. I like when you go into a new area or even like different sub areas will have different music. It says the name of the song and also who composed it, which is cool.
That's great. It's a good idea.
And the writing nails this Kingsfield vibe while being slightly more, a little bit more cutesy in some places. But it works. I find this incredibly charming, which I know is not fungible. But where it's important here, this is a world with history. You are arriving after these bad things happen. And you come across absurd and helpful weirdos, right? For me, the writing when it's a log you're finding somewhere is always good. I have a bone to pick with the NPCs. It's probably my biggest bone in the game, and we'll get to it. I don't want to spoil it. But they feel like they came out of another game to me. Like they're real cute. And they have like pun names and like things I don't feel like are very Kingsfield. The first merchant you run into is a reference to Sheryl Crow. That's Cheryl the Crow.
Cheryl the Crow, the musician. you know, who does I Want to Soak in the Sun and All I Want to Do Is Have Some Fun. Two songs. Those are two lyrics. They're titles of two separate songs, even though they rhyme. And really, she's really on theme, Sheryl Crow. But if kids, you don't remember who Sheryl Crow is because she's a 90s kind of alternative artist, you know, but that felt really clingy to me.
Yeah.
The
design stood up enough on their own for me.
The visual design's great.
Yeah,
it's just how cute, and I mean the visual design of Sheryl the Crow is great.
Yeah,
you also have a little demon girl that also feels like she's from another game to me.
Yeah,
it's fine, but and there's a little bit. My biggest bone to pick with the game happens at the ending. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
But the actual writing when you're just finding NPCs out in the wild or you're reading books on the ground, all that stuff is aces.
Yes.
And I think actually absolutely nails the vibe.
Yeah.
Vibe, and there's so little writing in the game. Like it's part of why the NPCs clang for me is that they're cute and friendly when the only important relationship in this game is between me and the edge of the map.
Yeah.
Like I did not need friends for this.
Yeah. Another thing about the writing that I feel should be highlighted is you can accomplish so much with cool names. And I know we just talked about Sheryl the Crow, but like that's
an uncool name. That is the worst one in the game.
Yes. Yeah. A lot like just places, items, you know, some of these figures from history. Like, man, a cool name will take you so far in game writing, I think.
Really evocative.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Kira, this developer, has made two games before this: Spooky's Jump Scare Mansion, that was in 2014, and Lost in Vivo in 2018.
Yes.
And Spooky's Jump Scare Mansion was a big hit.
Yes.
A huge game. You know, I had not heard of Lost in Vivo before this. You know, now I'm a little curious, but and Spooky's Jump Scare Mansion, I know it has meta stuff, but it also has jump scares in it.
Yeah.
And, you know, it is a little bit of what it says on the tin.
Right.
Which puts me off a little bit.
The thing about Spooky's Jump Scare Mansion is there are points where it is incredibly frustrating, and the checkpointing is not very generous. I tried streaming it at some point for Hexcrank and bounced off of it just because there was a point where it was just too much. Lost in Vivo is great. Nice. Lost in Vivo is one of the better indie horror games that I've streamed, and it's kind of been on my short list of things to maybe do in Horror Month for a while.
Yeah, I'm down. I'm definitely curious after this.
Yeah. So Spooky hit it big before the advent of this style, but Kira is kind of became part of this cadre of developers working in the PS1 nostalgia zone. Your haunted PS1 demo discs, your Dread X collections, things like that. Lost in Vivo is kind of in there, mimicking the Silent Hill style look. From a first-person view, while kind of having its own identity. It's really neat. And this game is also in this PS1 throwback kind of area.
Yeah. So this was first released in early access in March of 2022. The initial version is roughly the first third of the game, up to the gates of the big castle, Castle Lefano. In this, which is kind of the game's Anne Orlando. Very cute. When you got up to that in early access, it said the forces of early access prevent you from continuing or something like that. Real cute. But it's hard to find more stuff other than that. Like I didn't play this in early access. I was interested in it, but I avoid things in early access sometimes. And so I didn't see these changes as they happened. And there's not a lot of stuff you can read about this. Yeah. No development interviews that I could find either. You know, just kind of changes to see how it changed, you know, after the fact.
Yeah. Look through the Steam change logs and it's all stuff you would expect, you know, very terse, itemized list of added this area, change this, change that. So all we have really is what is on the screen. This is substantially larger and more intricate than Kira's previous outings. Like, for as much as I like Lost in Vivo, it is still in the vein of a first-person horror game, you know, run and hide and explore and find the keys kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
This has whole systems and stuff. This is a big reach for them.
This is a full game. Like, this does not feel tiddlywink.
No.
At all.
Yeah. One notable thing in the patch history, just if you're looking for somebody on the right side of history here, is Kira addressing some controversy around the 1.0 release of the game. They decided to add pronoun choices to the game's character creation as a response to people getting upset about a similar feature in Starfield. Kira did do this to piss those people off. But they reiterated in this post on Steam and also said it on Twitter that like, hey, even though this doesn't impact anything in the game, I just wanted to make a statement as a, yes, as a non-binary person, but also I just believe this for everybody. It's a fantasy world. You should be able to be what you want.
Yeah, of course. And it's also, people getting mad at this, it's especially ridiculous. Like, it was ridiculous in Starfield, but it's even super ridiculous here. Like, you don't have a character.
Yeah.
You're not doing a thing.
Yeah.
You're not, like, I don't feel embodied by this game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to take it away if somebody, I want people to be able to choose the pronouns they want for this.
Yes.
That's all I'm saying. I'm saying that if you're going to be mad about this, just pick whatever the fuck you want. You'll never even know. It's never referenced
right
in the game. Like, you'll never see it again. It's literally 2 seconds in the beginning of the game, and you can forget about it if you're not a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Even if you don't like it, and you shouldn't care, or should care because it's good.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well-reviewed game. It didn't get tons of reviews, but the ones that have were positive about it. It has a 91% user approval rating on Steam. Well-deserved.
Well, very well deserved. This is one of my favorite things that we've done for the show. That's getting into final summation territory. But like, I like this more than Infernax, which is another style homage kind of thing. And I liked Infernax quite a bit.
This is more my thing than Infernax. I think it's about equally as successful.
Yeah.
Is that? And I love both of those. Like, they're both 9s out of 10s. This is rarer. That it gets a lot of points for that for me, in that it's just novel that I get to play this kind of thing. And one of the things I was thinking about is like the Monkey's Paw, when Dark Souls came out, I was like, man, I would play anything that's fucking like this. And then like Lords of the Fallen showed up at my door and knocked on it. And it was like, would you like to join me in my quest for vengeance? Or whatever. And I was like, yeah, I guess. And then it just kept happening and happening and happening
so
forever. And
you like donuts, do you?
Yeah, it was literally, you like donuts, do you? I don't need that to happen to Kingsfield.
No.
I don't think it will. I don't need that to happen. Give me 2 more.
Yeah.
Like, over the course of the next 5 years, which is a long time, I want 2 more of these.
Yes.
And I'll be okay. And it would be awesome if FromSoft made one. Like, that's wishing way too much. But just give me a sequel to this and then like one other one, and I'll be a pig in shit.
Yeah.
I want a little bit more. So I think for that, this gave, like, Infernax edged me a little bit, just because there are things that do what Infernax does.
Yes.
Not that many, but there are. There are things.
Yeah.
This is so rare. Like, it was such a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good shit. A little bit hard to talk about because they're mazes. So we're going to talk about the areas, and when we talk about the areas, we're going to talk about the enemy palette generally. Some landmarks, puzzles, things like that, equipment and stuff we found, but we can't describe mazes to you for 2 hours.
Can't.
So don't worry about that. Also, nothing we've said so far will ruin your experience.
Not
and
at
I
all.
don't think there's very much we can say in the next 2 hours that would ruin your experience, because so much of it is figuring that shit out. So like, unequivocal recommendation, even if you get to the end of this and it takes that long to convince you to get it, I don't think it's not like this is a big twist at the end of this that is going to blow your mind. Yeah. That we're going to ruin.
Yeah. All that you will miss by listening to this is that ongoing, just question in your head as you are playing this, like, how close am I to the end of this?
Yeah. You might lose that, but other than that, this is a very hearty mum in terms of withstanding spoilers. So go play it. It'd be great if you did. I want this faucet to stay on. But if you just want to keep listening, note that we are going to spoil a couple things, but I think it should be fine. So let's get into it.
Let's do. We have our opening cutscene. nice and menacing. And we have this purple energy radiating out from the moon over this small seaside town, and then this purple fog starts emanating up from the reflection of the moon on the water as these crows circle over it overhead.
It's a vortex of crows, like a tornado of crows being drawn into the water. This large kind of worm, looks like an Adventure Time dragon a little bit, bursts out of the whirlpool, and it freezes into this carving, and we get our narration. Narration done by Alucard's voice actor, who also shows up later.
Yep.
Lovely. It's about this great beast emerging from the sea alongside this poison fog, which transformed the world. Humanity gathered into feudal enclaves, cut off from each other. This is wearing its inspiration 100% on its sleeve.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the poison fog. This is Demon Souls. Undesirables are cast out into the Great Well, a pit of the diseased and the undead with only one door to the surface.
Yeah.
And as this narration's happening, we have this old man who wheels a cart of bodies in the well. Tries to dump it in. One hand clings onto the edge, and the old man hacks the hand off with a hatchet. That's us.
That's us. That was our hand as we fall.
Roundabout. You might wonder how we got into this.
Yeah.
Scratch.
As we fall into the hollow basin, kind of our newbie cave here, you know, we wake up and walk down a coffin hallway until we find a statue of this robed figure cradling a knight, and we find our first weapon, this replica sword.
Yes. There's a plaque on the hallway here. It reads, "Seek the slumbering creature of moonlight. They're the last existing door." And we make our way through like tutorial.zone. You know, we go through, pass by this shaft of this well, in these cave passages where there are snails, as we mentioned how those guys work. And then there's an upgraded snail, the milk snail, that can cast magic at us and is hard for this point in the game. Like it's difficult to take them out. If you do, they drop a weapon that you can get, the ice sickle, that is really good at this point in the game.
Yeah.
There are weapon drops in this, and there's nothing you can use to manipulate it. You know, unlike a Dark Souls thing, but you can find weapons that will really change your run.
Yeah.
I got this candle from the jailer weapons in my run that I used for a long portion of it, and it's fucking badass. It's one of the coolest looking weapons I've ever seen in a video game.
Oh yeah.
It hovers over your hand. It's just like a cursed candle. And you hold your palm up and it floats in your hand and shoots fireballs out.
Yeah, that's some hexen shit right there.
It's super hexen. And you know, speaking of weapons that light and attack.
Yeah.
Super good.
The cave tunnels give way to this underground river where you have shulkers, these kind of many-legged mollusk-looking things that introduce our first status effect. Enemies can curse you, which places chains over your screen and makes it so you can't attack.
You can't do anything while you're cursed. So you have to wait for that to wear off. That's where that resistance stat comes in. Do that. They also have a distance attack, a ranged attack. So like at this point, when you just have ranged weapons, you're basically circling guys. You're circling them and doing hit and runs.
Yeah. Here. When you just have melee weapons, ranged weapons are different. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's what I meant. Yeah. There are two magic rings we find here. One that's very useful here, Ghost Light, which is your light spell. The way that works is summoning a separate entity that floats around with you that does not necessarily go where you optimally want it to go.
Right.
And it's not a great quality of light. It's like this eerie, dark blue light, blue or purple, I don't know. Yeah. But it's useful, but also not perfect.
Right.
And then Flame Spear, which is just a fire bolt.
Right.
Fire magic missile, basically.
Yeah. We get near this shortcut back to the knight statue and back to that first crystal, and we find an NPC, this demon woman named Demi, who's very friendly and will warp us, saying like, "Hey, I'm going around looking for people. I'll warp you to the safe place where we hang out, Wings Rest, which is kind of our nexus."
Yep, that's going to be our hub area. I don't like Demi. I don't. Demi is friendly to us, which is fine, but unusually so, and also looks like she's from like Disgaea or something.
Yeah,
to me, like very, very cute, huge eyes, like the little demon lady. Like when you say demon woman, it's really a demon little girl.
Yeah.
In this.
Yeah. Evoking the I forget the character's name. This is a prominent NPC in Shadow Tower Abyss specifically, but you find her and wake her up in Shadow Tower as well.
Yeah. But not as cute. Like this is like a chibi version of that.
Yeah.
Puzzle fighter Demi.
Yeah.
Through there. When we get to Wings Rest, Demi greets us. He's like, "Hey, the spell worked. I'm happy. The last time it only worked halfway through this, bring half the person there. It's great." And this is like an old hideout from the Crusades, this kind of temple that is going to act as our hub. We can warp back here from any warp point and can use this to warp to any warp point.
Yes.
But there's no actual exit. It's just a big room.
Right. There's another way into here that we'll find later. There are also items, these crystal shards, that will warp you back here, which are plentiful
super
and
rare.
useful. Oh,
are they plentiful?
I ran into a bunch of them, more than I needed.
Man.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, opposite for me. These were always in scarce supply for me. In part because I use them. I'd get to the end of a thing and be like, okay, there's nothing here. But yeah, these were in scarce supply. And the thing is to craft them were in scarce supply.
Yeah.
So yeah, interesting. Yeah, they just you find different stuff.
Yeah. She says this is a hideout from the days of the Crusades. We're going to learn what this is, though this does, it takes place in a far, far future version of our world. The Crusades they're talking about are these expeditions into the Great Well, specifically to deal with some of the big threats that started hiding out down here.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a central altar here that is a sculpture of the shattered moon, held together by these long lines of purple tears, and we meet our crow. Cheryl Crow is there. All she wants to do is have some fun. And she gets a feeling that she's not the only one. She's there at the table, peeling paper off the bottles of Bud and lighting matchsticks until the very last match. Those are all the lyrics I remember for those.
Yeah, until the sun comes out on the Santa Monica Boulevard.
Yes, Santa Monica.
Yes.
Visually, she has a reference to Eileen the Crow, of course, but she's actually a crow.
Yep.
She mocks you for the situation you found yourself in and says, escape is a myth, kind of doom here. And she is a merchant. They signal that you should buy the most key item from her, the enchanted key, because it's only 1 silver.
Yep.
The other thing you should buy is the crossbow. Crossbow will serve you for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Real cute touch here as well. If you break her crates, she gets mad and doubles her prices until you warp away. She's like, you can't just break everything. Like, those are mine. I had my stuff in there.
I never broke her crates. Yeah.
Yeah.
You jerk.
Yeah. Well, I break crates. I need it's slight on procurement.
I know. On the other side of this, that's kind of on the left side. Over on the right side, there's a bar. And we have a skeleton sitting at the bar, just surrounded by empty bottles of health potions, and he is drinking health potions. He's just knocking them back. Clive will tell you stories that obliquely reference some stuff that you're going to find later on, but also stories that are veiled homages to other games. Yeah.
Yes. Clive is my favorite NPC. It's a little goofy just to have a skeleton, but it doesn't feel as goofy to me, and it's useful. Like, he sits down and tells you lore stuff, as well as those illusions. Etna is the bartender, but really the interface for alchemy in this. We find out more about Etna's story, not for a while. Yeah. Etna largely was not very useful to me, as the alchemy was not super useful to me. Now that we have this key, though, we can go back to the Hollow Basin and use that key on this organic door, this door that has an eye. Its pupil is an eye hole. We use this key.
Its pupil is a keyhole. Yeah.
Or keyhole, rather. Yeah. Not an eye hole. That's not
all of us have eye holes.
I got multiples. I got doubles. Doubles is safer. One of the things I really like about this, if there's a door that will possibly open through attacking or something, it will just say ineffective. If it's just something that's not going to open, it doesn't say anything. If you do need to use something on it or attack it with a certain element or something, it says ineffective. Yeah. Usually. That's great.
Good steering. But this key gets you into, it's still part of the Hollow Basin map, but it's kind of its own little dungeon. We've got the Silent Temple. And we kind of wind our way downwards until we reach this stonework stairway, and things get very dark. The light is not reaching here. It also might be supernatural based on what is down here. And we find a torch. Which you only have one hand. You cannot have this equipped and a weapon at the same time. You can switch back and forth. That as a strategy. Also, a lot of the enemies here are weak to fire, and if you just whack them with this enough, they will catch fire and take damage over time. So it's not as pitiful as you might think.
It's teaching you that.
Yeah.
You want to keep this weapon out because it lights things up and it will set things on fire. I love that. for this. My strategy for this section here. There are dead bodies all over in this area, and these dead bodies are kind of sitting mummies with holes in their faces. And one of them is near this book, and it talks about the Prophet Abdul, probably a Abdul al-Hazrad, reference, preaching escape from the well through enlightenment. The bodies stay here. This has a really fun twist. What happens with this, and we're gonna find.
We're gonna see where a lot of them went.
Nearby, there's a big chamber where dead worshippers are facing a big statue of a coiled worm. And a plaque there says, "To hunger is to live, to consume is to die." It's like the end of that Tool album. It just has the guy. But these bodies have those big cavities where their faces should be. Yeah.
It's visually evocative of that one chapter of Uzumaki about the girl who got the spiral welt on her forehead that just grew and grew and grew until there's just a crater.
Or the giants in Dark Souls 2. Is a little bit to me. You find a real fun, a joke item here. The lithomancy ring. This was suggested by somebody to the creator on their Discord. It was like, hey, do this, lol. And then they just did.
It was a spell created by the Mad Wizard Abdul. What it does is it animates inanimate objects, but all they can do is scream.
Yes.
That's all that they do.
Beautiful.
So they'll just shake and scream for a second, and then they'll stop. The description says it is unknown what the purpose of the spell was.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Really fun.
Yeah. Perfect spell, no notes.
The one thing the only use I could find for this is if you want to max your lunacy. This increases it a lot. And you might want to if you're doing a spell build or you're looking for experience or what have you.
Just max out at the beginning of a run and then go and kill.
So it does that. We pull a lever which opens up a gate to a place where the mummies are up and walking. We've seen mummies, of course they're going to get up and walk.
One of the mummies is laid out on this altar kind of looking thing, and we can inspect it, and it's not that the front of the face is missing. It seems that the description says the brain seems to have carved its own way out.
That's really good. Real mummies, they pull the brain out through the nose. Through there. That does happen, but the brain doing it itself is such a brilliant little twist.
And just Kool-Aid manning out the front of the cranium?
Yes. Love it. There. So this lever opens up all the closed gates, which also releases all the mummies. Great little, very classic game design thing. You can make forward progress, but now you've unleashed threats.
Yes.
There are two kinds of mummies. There's regular mummies that will walk towards you and then spread poison gas around themselves. And then mummy knights. They have swords. And I use the same thing. It's all of these. I just use the torch until they were lit on fire, and then they would die while I was walking away from them.
No big deal. The northern portion of this map that was locked away by the closed gates is this temple with a lot of hidden doors off of it to these treasure rooms. You want to be careful which of them you open up, though, because one of them contains a mini boss called the Anku, which is a headless skeleton wielding a scythe. And he's really tough. He will blind you, which in this dark environment means you basically can't see, and also curse you, and does a bunch of damage and moves faster than anything.
Yes. Very useful, though, because after you take him out, you get the Blood Strike ring. Blood magic in this game reacts really interestingly. One of the things is instead of blood magic, you usually think you're sacrificing blood for it, but some of them in this you're just throwing your blood at enemies. Like you're literally doing it. But it causes temporary damage, so it doesn't cast from your MP, it casts from your HP, but it will refill like blood. Like when you go and donate plasma, like you don't die.
Oh no, it's gone forever. I'm a quart low.
Shit. Well, that was dumb. That wasn't worth the $200. It's so you can do these spells potentially forever as long as you're not doing them with a certain amount of density. Through that.
And not taking a bunch of damage along the way.
Yes.
So we work our way around, which is mostly what you do in this game, is work your way around until we get to this lower level of the well that we had kind of seen from above. we shoot this eye to dispel an illusion that was hiding this ladder back up to the hollow basin. This well is an obvious reference to Shadow Tower. Right, where the same thing happens here. Yeah, and we can go up there. We can make a save. There's also a door to a new level called the Yosei Forest. We could head there now. Both of us decided not to, though.
Yeah, it's not inappropriate. Yeah. Part of the general ease of this game is you can't really walk into an area. Like, there aren't meat gates. Like, so much in this. In retrospect, I probably wish I had, because I would have. There's weapons that were good.
Yeah.
Here, that by the time I got them, they were not good. They're no longer useful.
Yeah.
The southern portion of the level is the sewer. One passage has this hidden wall to a room that has a VHS tape on an altar. The title screen for this also there's like dead fish and VHS on a pile is the title screen for this game. And a plaque nearby says you're in the know, right? Like Demon Souls reference here. This mixing of having regular tech, with this medieval fantasy stuff is really great. Yeah. And they don't overplay it.
No.
This would be really cutesy if it would be too cutesy if you did too much of it. Like you collected VHS tapes as a health up or something stupid like that. Like it can't be Tony Hawk.
You get into the version of it that's kind of like Horizon Zero Dawn, where like the collectibles that you get, it's a coffee mug, but it talks about it having a ritual purpose or whatever. Here, this is just for a secret to get
what ancient people called Furbies, like that kind of shit. Yeah, it seems to be a petrified pet of the ancient peoples.
Yes. The skin is called the ghost. The inside's called the gremlin. But these VHSs that you're going to find, there are only 2 of them in the game, and they are for an ending that is so hidden it might as well be an ARG. So
yeah, we haven't talked about this. I just did the straight putt ending of this. Yeah. I looked up the other ones, but I was happy with the canonical ending.
Yeah.
The sewer tunnels lead to a new level, the Fetid Mire, which is Dark Souls ass name for something. And it's more sewer. It is a proper sewer level. This looks like a sewer in that there are like channels and crossroads. There is the, the flow of filth and the little walkway by it. And it's organized off these big multi-level cisterns you can walk through. Yeah. Which has king slimes. I love king slimes.
King slimes is good. Most of the time in this, you're fighting regular slimes, which will just poison you if you make contact with them, meaning you want to use something with a little bit of range, a little bit of reach on it. You also have slime skeletons, which is the slimes.
But a skeleton standing on a slime?
Yeah, like a cat standing on a Roomba. Yeah.
It's very cat on a Roomba.
Yeah.
Through this. By this point, I had bought the crossbow, and it's not as dark here. So I use that a lot.
Yeah.
For this.
I spec'd for decks early on. Was a thing. I rode that crossbow as long as I could, and then rode the elven bow as long as I could after that.
I ended up finding, we'll talk about it. This is a cool thing about this game is because everyone's going to have different shit they find. We're going in the area after this, I found a secret wall that had a wand that I used for the whole mid game.
Oh God, that wand is so good. Is that the witch's one that can cast fire? Yeah.
Yeah. Until I got the candle that looked cooler and cast better fire. And then got the legendary weapon. And that's basically the weapons I used for the game. I used other stuff occasionally.
Yeah.
But, there's not, one thing I would say, as much as I like the limiting you to 2 weapons, it does discourage experimentation a little bit.
Well, yeah.
Like a lot of weapons I picked up looked cool and I just didn't use them.
Yeah.
At some point I got to buy up a gun and it was not good. So it's just like, it's okay.
And I fucked around with it, but that's basically a tradition in any of these games where the gun is it's not that gun. Great. Yeah.
Yeah. Unless it's Shadow Tower 2.
Oh yeah.
And then there's good guns.
Man, I've got a Shadow Tower replay in me.
But this made me want to replay Kingsfield 4 and Shadow Tower and Shadow Tower 2
all at once.
On 3 different controllers.
Yep, I'm gooning Kingsfield bikes.
Hooked up to the neural net. Just put the hypnospace me into these.
What happened to Cole? Yeah, he lawnmower manned into Kingsfield.
Like they should invent a pill that allows you to play all 3 of these games while you're sleeping. And you never wake up.
And that pill would be called Heaven.
Yeah, and it's a side effect that we all accept.
Yeah.
the lower level of this, after you get past these guys, the western level, there's a bunch of illusory walls in a row that ends with a slime that is wearing a ring, by which we mean a little ring is floating inside the slime.
Yep, like a Jello mold.
So this is cutesy, and this does not pass my, set off my alarms because it's so hidden.
Yeah.
I love Jaleisha.
Jaleisha's so good.
Jaleisha's great.
Also a slime girl is a thing, and just a like anime monster girl kind of fandom kind of things. And just inverting that where this is a slime who's just, it's a girl slime, right?
Yeah. It's Slime Princess from Adventure Time.
Yeah. So, she's here and she's kind of flirting with it. She's real playful, and says all the meaty sludge and sewage is great for the complexion.
It's great.
Yeah. And she asks us, hey, while you were out there, did you happen to find my boyfriend Bonnard?
So we find Bonnard's diary up on the upper levels, and we make our way back. We can read, Bernard's diary. Oh, my sickly sweet candy melt, my viscous strawberry dewdrop. My love for you was ever porous, and alas, it has been drained. My heart has found another. Our bony fingers clutch for each other. So he's gone out to be with his own kind.
Yeah.
We break the news to Jaleisha, and she goes, "Oh, that sucks." Like,
with an X. Yeah.
Love it. She says, keep me in mind if you don't want to be single anymore, and gives you the slime orb ring that she has. And the description says, given as a gift by your adoring girlfriend, Jaleisha. Jaleisha's great.
I love Jaleisha.
Jaleisha does not show up again. I think hiding that kind of thing makes it work.
Yeah.
For me. Yeah. Jaleisha's great.
So when you get lower, lower below the cisterns, you find these underworks, and there are two new enemies here. You have Rat Kings, which are just the urban legend version of Rat Kings. It is a bunch of rats with their tails all kind of like tangled together. But
apparently, it's an urban legend, but apparently that can happen through feces.
So they get matted together. Yeah.
Yep. I've read that is a thing that can happen. It's super rare. It just happens through like shit and filth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anywho, sorry. It's one of my favorite, like, if you're ever, little Gary's Dungeon Master corner. Next time somebody in your tabletop group wants to do something, have whoever the quest giver is be like, I can cast a spell for you or whatever, but I need an intact Rat King.
Okay.
And then you have a good reason to go into wherever you want to put that. Because it's a scary, weird, rare thing.
Yeah. But I love that they're all arranged in a circle and it just moves across the floor like
like a Roomba.
Yeah, like a Roomba
on a Roomba.
Like Urkel.
They cause bleeding, which is just damage over time.
Yeah.
That will happen to you. It's similar to poison to this.
It's similar to poison, but it heals. Yeah.
It heals if it wears off. Before you die. And then rat queens, which are giant rats that have some rats on them, like a possum.
Yeah.
They're also just regular rats that I was constantly killing because I needed their 2 silver. I was a real murderer in this game in terms of there's a couple innocent things that they had to die because I needed their silver. On-site procurement.
This is also where you can swim around in the tunnels. I was, poking around in here, and you can get over to a kind of hidden place to get the broken hilt, which will turn into the fire sword.
Because this is a deep sewer, and it had introduced the status effect water, which just makes it so you're slow and you can't jump very well. Like you can breathe underwater just fine. But I was so scared of water as like a status effect. I was like, shit, like, what does that mean? I tried to avoid it as much as possible. I didn't end up getting this hilt because I was scared.
Yeah. Well, in Kingsfield, I mean, at least 4, water was pretty much, it was a sure death. Like there's that pool by the blacksmith guy in the opening area, which like there's no way really through it except to get
ramp,
except to get enough health to walk through it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here it doesn't drain your health. It just makes you worse.
Yes.
A little bit.
Yeah. The north of this place has an outlet to this new area. We find a diary written by somebody we're going to find a little bit later on, Sir Garot, who is cursing the well and kind of writing, I go onwards to the castle of the diseased one. And he bids farewell to his brother, saying, I'll give you a proper burial if I succeed.
This isn't a coffin zone.
Yes.
Like it's a diary. It's next to a bunch of coffins filled with corpses.
Right.
Here. Sir Garot is Sigmire. Like it's a Sigmire reference.
Yeah.
But you move forward into one of my favorite areas of the game, which is the Sanguine Sea. This is a big, shallow blood lake that is bigger than like almost any video game area. It feels like, like this is a flight simulator sized area, and empty.
Yep.
Like the navigation of this becomes about being in the middle of it and having no point of reference, and having to walk in an arbitrary direction if you get lost to hit a wall so you have some kind of bearing on it. It's really good.
Yeah.
I really, really like this. The atmosphere is incredible.
Love it. Very few enemies. There are these head crab looking things called hemoliths. There are a couple of skeletons around. Broadly, more of the incident is in the south. If you go there, you see there's like a graveyard with some headstones sticking up. But there is something more noticeable, which is a gigantic thing.
Like brontosaurus legs.
Yeah, like that you cannot really see the body of because the legs extend up through the fog line above the cloud line of the like red mist hanging over the blood sea. There's also like a tail or a trunk or something dangling down. If it wasn't for that trunk, I would say this is the nanny from the Muppet Babies.
A four-legged nanny.
Yeah.
But we also don't know that the nanny from the Muppet Babies has hands and doesn't just have 2 extra legs up there.
Right.
Like the nanny from Muppet Babies might be horse-like.
Yes.
In nature, or at least part horse. We don't know.
Yeah. Equine in nature in some fashion. Yeah.
Likely.
This is the Jotun.
Yes.
Which you're going to need to kill it to get one of the endings. Otherwise, it is this big non-hostile mystery that is just plotting around. Yeah.
You can. This is I didn't do this because going back through would be annoying. You eventually get a spell that lets you talk to monsters. And most of them don't have anything to say, but this one is peaceful. Like, oh, little one, your life is but a second. Yeah. Ignore me. Like I'm I'm the mountains or something like that.
Yeah.
One of the things that really surprised me about this game, non-derogatory, is that in the Southwest, as I was just kind of poking around, you run into what is a boss encounter, basically. It's a mini boss, technically. There's not a title screen and stuff or a cutscene. There's really only 2 bosses, but this basically counts.
Yeah.
And it comes out of nowhere. It is with this thing called an abyssal demon.
Yeah.
It looks just like a Titanite demon. And I was outclassed by this, basically. Like, I did not die to it because I ran and shot it basically all the way across the blood lake. This thing chased me Benny Hill style around the blood lake, like
nice.
Mad.
Yeah.
But it's not too difficult because the engine doesn't allow for too difficult. Like, it charges at you and will stop and attack, but then you move out of the way and attack it. And then every once in a while rear back its head and create this flame around him. And that is your cue to attack him from range.
Yeah.
Through there.
It's headless like an abyssal or like a Titanite demon is, but he's got like this big ring sticking up over his shoulders. When he does that, like a glowing green skull appears, and then he does basically the firestorm attack from Dark Souls, right?
Yeah, Titanite demons are from Dark Souls if you have not played that.
Yes. Yeah.
The level south of the Sanguine Sea, at the south side, are the Castle Lefanu gates here. There are broken carriages strewn on the bridge here. There's a statue of Ophelia, the great knight of Lyria, out front, who we can see. And in laying on the Sigmire, it is also from Dark Souls, reference is really thick. Outside the gate is Garrett the Hound. He's sitting with this huge hammer. He came to kill the lord of the castle, but he can't quite get in.
The conundrum cannot open the gate. Neither can we. The main gate it's got this kind of white seal on it. And there's a smaller entrance over closer to where Garrett is, with the sign that labels it the cattle pens, which is also sealed. It's going to be awesome when we get in there, but
we can get into there now. I didn't either, but that's the one where you just need to use blood.
I thought you've got the blood strike. I didn't try it. I only the spell that I used was blood drain to get that.
Blood strike works.
Okay. Yeah.
Any blood element spell works. I didn't try that because I didn't have it kind of demonstrated to me through the forest.
Yes.
When I said I wish I had gone to the forest first, that kind of hinted to me this idea that I might be able to use that. But this is a deeply nonlinear game. Like there are a couple of choke points that you have to go, and there's only a couple places where you can trigger an ending here, but it's really nonlinear. So if we wanted to, we could go through this. But it's good to go explore because we want to go get to the end of those diverticula, get levels and weapons.
So the next place we're going to go is off of the eastern shore of the Sanguine Sea. Like if you just headed out of the Fetid Mire and walked straight, you would get here. You're going to head here because if you bounced off Castle Le Fanu, this is going to be an obvious place to try. This is technically optional, and the way we're getting into it is not the only way to reach this. So like you only need to come down here and do this if you're going for one of the endings. Also, it's fine to do it because you get cool stuff.
Yeah, I think that the intended order probably has you going to the forest when it's unlocked. Which again, we both didn't do. But just in terms of power curve and the weapon curve, I think so. This is also what I did, though.
Yeah. But this is the Accursed Tomb is what this is.
Yeah. Super dark. There's a really interesting enemy in here that you pop up with sort of these cursed paintings. They'll attack at melee range with spears, and then they leave, and this area is entirely dark, darker than the sewers. And they leave these little motes behind that will blind and curse you if you touch them.
Yeah.
So they move towards you, leaving these little motes that will light the way to light where these guys are at, which is useful. But also it limits your dodging around them.
Yeah.
They also do a little flip where they'll be invincible on their other side. I practiced fighting these guys for a second outside of because there's a crystal right when you first get in here. And I had to figure it out.
Yes.
How to take these guys out.
I also they start out like they're hanging up on the walls and they float toward you. Float after you. Also, we talked about that spell that you can use to get little lore bits, like talk to the enemies. That's called Bestial Communion. It's really well hidden, but it's neat. When you get cool little bits from these enemies. This one, it says, "Help, release us. Cannot live in this. Die, die. Give us a new vessel." So these are souls that are trapped inside these paintings who want to kill you so they can body jack you.
Yeah, they could walk around as you. Yeah. Really neat. It's worth noting, I don't think any of those bestial communions are even really hints.
Yeah.
It's just something they did for flavor. You can go online and read them all, but it's just like a loving little touch.
Yeah.
There are passageways they're high on the wall at this point. This is where I learned, at some point I got the rock shield spell. I mentioned this in the intro. This is where I used to get up there.
Yeah.
Through that. You can also use Coffin if you have this by now. If you do this in a different order, or if your dex is just high enough, you can just jump up there. But you want to get up there to get different treasures and stuff.
Yeah.
Through there. You don't have to, but there's good goodies.
You meet Demi up here, and she gives us a warning saying, hey, Death, capital D, is attracted to places like this. And they've got their scythe, she has her own little demon scythe. Hey, I got this from them. Here, they got a nicer one after this. She stole it from Death. She says, hey, there's also a demon down here. All of this is true. We'll talk about the Death area over in the east when we get there. But
yeah, we had to make our way through. This is a several sub areas deep.
Yes,
kind of zone. So there's a little mechanism that we can find nearby. It looks like a little bit of a still. These are Prometheus lights of Prometheus there that we can light up.
Yeah.
Through this. And we have to light up all three of them. We find this out as we go into the commoner crypts here to do some grave robbing. There's a plaque that says, light the three fires of Prometheus, only then shall vision be restored.
Yeah.
You didn't really know what this meant, you know, at the time. I eventually got it. This is where we pick up our first survey banners, which are let us place landmarks. For things. Again, I think that these should have been easier to make, or should have refreshed, or should have maintained or something. But when you light the final fire, the area lightens up a little bit, and there are enemies that are invisible before. that would attack you. What would happen is there'd be a laser from really high up.
Yeah.
Or you'd be walking and so all of a sudden you couldn't walk any further. Like you'd bumped into something because you had. And you'd attack and you'd ineffective. Yeah. I was like, well, that's really scary and weird. Doing the lights allows you to see them. These are Migo. Also just straight up Migo.
Yeah.
Like it's, they're Migo. But the reason that I love the design of these guys, because the reason why the laser comes from really high up is their necks stretch up and they shoot the laser down at you. When they're invisible, in parts of it, it looked like it was coming from the top of tombs.
Yeah. I was looking around for like turrets or something.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Really cool. They are immune to non-physical or physical damage. You have to use magic damage.
Yes. Yeah. So it's lit up, and it is easier to go down into these catacombs, these kind of maze-like tunnels. Everything is maze-like tunnel. It's more maze-like, where we are attacked by mares. These are severed horse heads.
These are assholes.
Yeah, they float up to you. They're pretty fast, and they either bonk you with a headbutt or they scream to deal damage.
And the scream does not have very much like refractory period. You don't get very many iframes, between it or whatever. So they'll scream and kind of follow you, and you'll, you take 1 hit point of damage in the sun from it. So you do not want to let these guys get close.
No.
At this point, I was using lightning spells. That's really effective against the Migo here, and I was using it on these guys, even though my spell restoration was kind of limited, just because I didn't want them to corner me and kill me. Like this is the first time I think I died in the game. Was right around with these mares, like getting a bad luck roll with mares.
Yeah. It's good that you were using lightning spells, because that is the way you open some doors. There are these doors that are shrouded in purple fog. That means that they're enchanted with darkness, and countering that with light will make them disappear.
Yes. Yep. And get through that. In one hidden room, we find a TV VCR, and we have a VHS tape. Excuse me. So we can put that in. And it shows like video security footage or like Steadicam footage of somebody with a GoPro walking through a level we've seen before. They're walking through an area. Actually, you told me about this. I thought it was the sewer, but it's actually the sewer level of the Silent Temple. They're walking through that, and they fire lightning at a random corner of a gate, and they get a key.
Yeah. So you get it, and it's not clear where you need to use it. I only figured this out when I was looking at the requirements for the endings.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a strangely colored wall in the crypt down here. It kind of looks a little bit like opalescent, a little bit. The colors are just kind of shining it off. And you use this key on that wall to get into this crypt with a glitching coffin that is kind of like shuddering in and out of existence. And it contains a white VHS tape that you cannot use on the combination VHS CRT television that is in the other the other place.
It requires a full home stereo system that we're going to find unlikely, but we're going to find it later.
We are.
And that unlocks an ending. One of these crypts in the catacombs has a coffin with a red skeleton in it, and if you hit it with blood, it disappears, and we get a really good weapon here, the blade of Justina.
Yes.
Here. It appears in the hallway outside. This is a dagger that will draw mana from enemies, so you can use it to refill your mana.
Yeah, it's like like the Chris knife. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I found some use from this. We head north from those catacombs into this area called the Mausoleum. And one of the high up crypts here contains a black book. We use this later.
Yeah.
We could have already gotten to the area where we use this now if we went through the forest.
Yeah.
But we didn't.
No, we could have gotten there if we had high enough dexterity or used coffins to jump up to it. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But yeah, it's roughly in that same direction. We get this. We are in, we're in these very dark mausoleum tunnels, and suddenly you get a message: death is approaching. Death will spawn in and chase you down. And in this maze where you're finding good items, like you're finding your rare candies, there's like earth elixirs and ocean elixirs. Like they're laid around here in some of these dead ends. But death will chase you very quickly. and will inflict bleed and curse just by being near you. Also, you have these phantasm orbs around that will inflict blindness if you touch them. And as you try to run out of the entrance area from this, there's another abyssal demon in a much more constricted area than the Sanguine Sea.
The abyssal demon I fought first. The abyssal demon spawned before death.
Okay.
And I fought him, and I was like, oh, cool. That was guarding the mausoleum. Like, I can now go into the mausoleum, and then walked in and then got death approaches as a message. I ended up running away and then using a crystal shard to warp out.
Yeah.
Like, great panic inducing moment. I didn't end up getting a lot of the treasure here because I was like, oh, I need something. In my video game mind, I was like, oh, I'm going to get something like a ward. Or something.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not the case. You just have to avoid him, even though you can kill death in this. It's a way to get one of the alternate endings.
Yes.
But it does a really fun world state thing. That's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
I did not do that.
No.
This is also this first room, the secret door on the right is where you get the super wand that like carried me through the next couple zones.
I mean, it felt almost necessary for the first boss, for the one in Castle Le Fanu, actually. Yeah. So like that's all we have. Like, you know, you can get to a place where you can look up from the bottom of a well, but you can't really get up there. Maybe you could coffin your way up, but I didn't have that spell at this point, I don't think.
No, you get it from the forest zone.
Yeah.
You get it from over here. You could also, I mean, we could go into the castle.
Yeah.
Too, but if, you know, the kind of tutorialization for that happens in the forest.
Yeah. So we got to warp all the way back up there. And we're going to go to an area that we're probably over leveled for by having done the curse tomb.
Yeah. I thought so. Like none of this was hard.
Yeah.
None of this was even remotely challenging for me. Part of it is because I had super wand. But we open up in this treehouse here, high above the forest floor. There are butterflies floating around in these bridges. None of these guys ever got close enough to me to where I got to see what they did.
Yeah.
Because again, I had super wand. But I always love a butterfly or a moth as an enemy. Here. And we find a book in this vestibule. It says, many souls have tried and failed to climb the branches into the outworld, but what if the answer lay below?
Yeah.
And we have to keep going down.
Yeah. And we're going to see what happens to people who try and escape by going up in a very cool little thing. Another treehouse has a ring for blood drain. Another kind of joke spell. This does not do anything except it. You know, you think when you get blood drain, like, oh, it's going to drain the enemy's blood and it's going to heal me. No, this is basically like opening an artery
and spraying blood at the enemy.
Yeah. It's more of a key than a spell. And we're going to figure out what to do with these when we get to the forest floor. There is a journal that talks about these bulbs, like these sprouts that are carnivorous, and they react to blood being on them. You know, they open up, and this is the way we're going to open up a shortcut. There are also some treasures in some of them.
You can actually use Blood Strike for anything. You can, you know, when Blood Drain is more of a key, but Blood Strike will work. It's just the element that it wants. So I don't think I ever actually used Blood Drain. I read the description and it was like this is a trap.
Why would I do this?
This isn't going to work. Yeah. This is going to get me.
There's a side path on your descent that has classic Demon Souls 2 like dropping onto beams down a very large pit. This is something that has been in every Souls game. And it is replicated here. You want to do this because it is the way to get the only healing spell that I found.
It's also the only healing spell I found, but I did not find this path. So cue me building the most inefficient coffin stack to try to climb this and getting up to the spell, but not getting any further, and then feeling like an idiot when I found the back way in.
Right.
Holy Warmth heals you very little, like not very much. But it's really quick to cast. So it kind of functions as a, like, when you're not in danger, you can convert MP into HP.
Yes.
Basically.
Yeah.
And the forest floor is full of these spirit animals, these little kami guys. They're little bunnies. They're just like super cute. They don't do anything, but you still want their silver, so you kill them.
I love the rendering style on these. So like they're 3D models that hop
Star
around.
Fox enemies.
Yeah, so it's like they're 3D models, but the actual like silhouette of them, whenever you're looking at them, it is a mask. That is like, so it's basically like a moving cutout to like this weird pink writing texture behind them. It is a very cool effect, used very well in a PS1 style indie horror game called Fatum Betula.
Nice.
Yeah, this is kind of on loan from that, I think. Yeah.
There are deer also who are aggressive.
Yeah.
Fight. There's a book at the base of the tree, which is kind of what gave me the hint to start using blood as a key.
Mm-hmm.
There are plants that seem to be carnivorous and they respond to blood, and they straight up say some of them might still have treasure in them.
Yes. Yeah.
You know,
one of them, like the one that's right by the journal that you find, opens up and there's a ladder vine that you can take to get back up. It is the shortcut from the forest floor to the crystal. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. There's a chest we can get the elven bow, which I didn't end up having use for, but would have if I'd gone here right away.
Mm-hmm.
There's also up in the canopy, there's a sword hanging that if you shoot it down, you can get. That's really strong.
Mm-hmm.
Again, though, I just was outpaced it.
Yeah.
Through that. So you wrap around and we eventually get into the small hollow where there are Venus flytrap enemies that attacked. They just kind of walk slowly towards you as Venus flytraps. They seem as hard to defeat as a Venus flytrap in real life. I set them on fire with super wand.
Do you know where Venus flytraps are found? Like where they're native to?
In the American Southeast.
It's like North and South Carolina. You think okay, this is a meat-eating plant. This is going to be like the Amazon, just like a Tintin jungle primeval. No, just Carolina swamps.
Ameritrash plant.
Yeah.
It's also, there's a whole industry of like pirates, Venus flytrap pirates who go into protected growing things or steal them from nurseries. That steal them to sell them. So when you find them in mall kiosks and shit, they're like blood like blood fly traps.
They're not ethically sourced.
They're not ethically sourced at all. Like we should not be doing that. And as a kid, like I was not immune to the idea of a Venus flytrap. But they're hard to keep alive because they're not supposed to grow in Northern Illinois.
Nope.
Like they just leave them the fuck alone. But there are people whose whole job is to go on little shadow runs. To collect the bounty on these things.
Maybe don't do
fucking
that.
Nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, it sucks.
Duckfeed
It's just
disapproves.
also real weird though. What a weird job. like, oh, hey, Dad, I'm bringing my boyfriend over tonight. Oh, what does he do? Well, he fan boat activities. I get to the fan boat at night and one thing, yada yada, and some money comes in.
He says it's better for me not to know.
Yeah. Just,
we find a book in this chamber, which is a journal talking about this journey into the roots taking its toll, but saying like it's nowhere near as bad as what happens to the people who go above. Talking about this paralyzing sap in the branches. Again, we're going to see what that is, and it's real cool. Yeah.
Wow. We drop into these lower roots and kind of look around. We find a sign that points us towards Patchouli's shop. She sells 1 silver health potions. The way health potion pricing in this works is that they're very cheap initially.
Yeah.
And then after you have a certain amount, they jack up the price.
Yes.
It's not just scarcity. It's not like you bought too many and now they're this expensive. If you use them, the prices will go down.
Yes.
Again.
Yeah.
This should be suspicious. These are cheaper even than the base price ones.
Yeah. 1 silver versus like 12 as the base. Yeah.
Yes.
And you think, Yahtzee, I've got these. I'm going to buy a bunch of them. But then it turns out when you look at it, it's not a health vial, VIAL. It is a health vial, VIAI.
Yes, capital I.
Yeah. Kind of masquerading as an L. So like if you're just reading, you think, oh, that's a health vial. You drink one of these, it's actually poison.
That's great. That's real good.
She's Patches. Yeah.
Yeah. The little Patches reference. If you leave and come back, she's surprised that you're still alive. I think it's only if you drink that she expresses the surprise.
Yeah.
And she asks you to do a quest for her. She wants you to retrieve a skull from the forest canopy and gives you the enchanted key to get there.
Yeah. And one of the trees, out in the forest has these vines running up that you can climb up and then reach a door, one of those living doors, to get to this new kind of mini level, the forest canopy, which is all across the upper branches. The enemies here are pretty familiar. Some of the Venus flytraps are like little landmines that will spring up if you walk over them. Yeah. And there are also these flying plant squids and plants that scream and do persistent AoE damage. These plants up here, occasionally you will be slowed down just by being near them. And what's happening is that sap gets on people and then slows them down until they can't move anymore. And then the bodies are converted into wood. They're made part of the branch. And you're seeing just all of these bodies preserved as wood, just kind of like just scattered over the platforms up here. It's fucking great.
It's real cool.
Yeah.
It's super good. These plant squid guys are real assholes. They're going to show up later.
Yeah.
As well. They're at the far end. We grab the skull there. On the far end of the limbs, we find a body with a diary. And it laments, coming this far just to find another dead end.
Yeah.
I love how that narratively justifies all the dead ends in the maps. You can find the evidence of other people pushing the boundaries to try to get out of this. When we return the skull to Patchouli, she says, "Oh, this is going to make a great planter," and gives you a ocean elixir. To make your MP go up. Very cute.
Very cute. Using the skull of this friendly hermit who exiled himself into the woods as a planter.
Yeah.
And then when you come back, there is a skull with a plant growing out of it. Yeah.
There's a couple little bits like that, like things like that will change. They're also like holiday bits and things that work with your real time clock on your computer. A bunch of clever shit like that I just didn't notice because I'm
playing it over the course of 10 days, something like that.
Yeah. But if you play on Christmas, like there was a bunch of Christmas stuff and you get a spell that lets you summon Santa. There are little things like that.
Yeah.
Things that only happen in the full moon.
It interacts in a wild way with the first boss fight against the winged demon or whatever it is, Alucard, in a baffling way. But yes. So another dead end. Those branches, they just reach the top of this cavern. There's no way actually up to the surface. There is one more place that we can go. By leveling up or by getting the coffin spell or any number of ways, we can go back to that well that is in the hollow basin. And there is an upper floor that you could get to if the stairway isn't broken. With any of those means, you can get up there, and this is a whole ass level. Where you can go. This is the Forbidden Archives, this huge library with all of these gardens that are planted in honor of this fallen kingdom of Lyria.
Yeah, this is also where I went, but I again getting the order wrong. This runs into a dead end because we have to do Castle Le Fanu first.
Yes,
at the end of this. So I think the intended order would be to go to Forest, then Castle, then here.
Yeah.
But this is also how I did it.
Yeah. So, I put it here just because of all of the areas you can get to before you go through this kind of bottleneck point at the castle. Yeah.
Well, it's also just the order you did it.
Yeah. True.
I didn't realize I could get into the castle, but even if I could, I was scared of it.
Yeah.
Because it looked like a big imposing Anne Orlando thing.
Because it is.
And it was before I realized the game isn't that hard.
Yes.
I can handle it. It is very imposing, but by the time I got there, I was fine.
Yeah.
So it's this huge book garden. There's all these this maze of bookshelves, some of which are really warped in a really cool way that looked like, to me, I was like, oh, is this referencing PS1 wall warping? As a thing.
Kind of.
A little bit.
It's vaguely the effect. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there are books floating around that are called Necronomicons, kind of devaluing the tome. If there's just a bunch of them floating around, they die in 2 hits.
And I love that, the only attack I ever saw them do, this Necronomicon, the most dangerous book in the entire world if you open it. But if it's just flying around, all I can do is bonk you.
Yeah, I love it. Like a real book. Yeah. We can find a book we can read here and talk about King Griffith, which obviously a Berserk reference. Turn the tide of the Dark War by drinking the cranial fluid of the dead Jotun, making him the first person to learn magic.
Yes. And another history book near this door that is sealed with a blue seal, kind of familiar from the front of Castle Le Fanu, talks about Prince Krillal, who vanished after destroying the kingdom of Lyria, and his castle disappeared as well. Castle Fanu disappeared, and it wasn't rediscovered until the Crusades plumbed into the depths of the well. That we found it, just literally it warped bodily down to this lake of blood.
Yeah, and hey, we know that castle. We get to the bottom floor of this. There are 3 levels through here. So it's a little bit tricky to navigate, through this. We get down to the bottom, and there are milk snails. They're back, our babies. And then these chimera, which are tough enemies. They charge and chase you really closely. They have a little goat head that will shoot a laser and a snake head that will shoot poison.
Yeah.
These guys are all tough. But then my favorite thing is the enlightened ones, which are floating brains and nervous systems. And we know these guys. Yeah. Those monks who saw enlightenment. And their brains crept out of their heads.
Their brains crept out of their friends, and they brought friends. Yeah. They brought the entire spinal cord and the entire nervous system and the eyes as well, which is hitting on something. Somebody on Twitter made this point, but I've also had this thought, which is, the scary part of the human body we've decided is the skeleton, when in reality, when you see a disembodied nervous system, like from the body's exhibit or whatever, like that is way more monstrous, actually, just all these tendrils and stuff. This is fucking great.
I think if we didn't know, if skeletons weren't so popularized, then they would have more impact.
Yes.
But nobody ever does anything with nervous systems. Like that is the next great thing to take over. The lost nervous system of Cadarva or whatever.
We're advising you, buy stock in nervous systems now.
Yes. Yeah. It's coming. A24% nervous systems. There's a little hidden sword where you get the like a big Buster Sword style sword, the Wolfram Greatsword. Made of tungsten. Again, I read this as almost like a berserk thing as well for the kingdom of Griffith.
Just going even further, tungsten is so fucking heavy. Like a little 4-inch cube of it's like 30 pounds or something. Yeah. We also find this ragged old scholar sitting at the edge of one of these gardens. His name is Daedalus. And he's sitting among a bunch of these kind of black-stained, rotten books that have this corruption kind of sloughing off of them. Because I came here after I went to the Accursed Tomb, he notices that I'm carrying a black book and asks if I can have it. So you hand it over, and then if you come back after you reload, he's studied it and gotten a spell out of it. You get the fireworm ring from it. And there are 2 more black books in the game that you can find. They're pretty well hidden. That will get you other spells. One of them being that Bestial Communion.
Yeah, I only did that first one to get the fire snake spell, and I never used it. The black books themselves are cool. There are books the knowledge is so cursed that and they can't get rid of them, that they just cover every page with ink. He's just got a way to read them. There. The level loop's backing on itself, and there's an exit. The only exit that we can get through is sealed by a blue seal. So this is when I had a great little eureka moment. I was like, okay, well, let's go back to that castle and poke at the edges. Surely, that's the only thing left to me. And because I had the knowledge of, blood might open things. That is when I tried it. Using the blood strike on the door to the pens.
Well, the door to the pens, I didn't notice it when I first went down, but there's like a little receptacle. There's like a cup. And I know what cattle means, right? In vampire parlance, the herd, okay, I'm going to try this. That opens up the door into this incredibly dark and spooky dungeon full of red fog and torture implements and starved vampire thralls who are being lorded over by vampire pages.
Desperate for blood. And I just want to be like, man, look outside. It's very Homer Simpson, but what of donuts? Oh, it's raining again. Just go outside. There's so much blood, starved thralls. None of these guys are too tough at this point. And this is a function for me of having done all the exploration I could do before this. Again, even games I really love, I'll ding where I gotta ding them. It's a little bit of a bummer that there was not a sense of actual danger here for me. There's a sense of it. There's an atmosphere. It's spooky, but I was in no danger. And I love when those things work together.
Yes. The vampire pages, the thing that makes them harder is the fact that they are fast. We've not run into a lot of fast humanoids, right? They've been skeletons and mummies and stuff.
One cell that we're exploring has this final written by a spell sword of the Golden Lance named Therian Bunch, who ended his life before he could turn. And his body has the Summon Ice Sword ring on it. I also did not use this.
This is fucking broken is what this is.
Is it?
Yeah.
So I ended up using the Ice Shard ring, I think it's called.
Oh, which that creates a little icicle patch in front of you. Yeah.
Yes, that thing is broken as shit. I melted the emboss with it, and I had the ultimate. I had the Moonlight Greatsword. I still use that on the emboss. Ice is really overpowered in this game. It's why if you get the icicle, like I got that icicle from the milk snail in the beginning, that did really good damage.
Yeah,
for a while.
Yeah. So this summons like a magical sword to fight alongside you.
Nice.
Yeah, it's super good.
Summons are really good. I ended up using, I can't remember where I found it, but there's a summon fairy spell that gives you a little turret.
Yep.
And I used that near the, when I first got it, I didn't have enough MP to cast it, but I drank enough ocean in order to cast it. And that's really powerful. Even just while cruising through a level. That's really nice just to have it sniping enemies for you.
Yeah. So the northern wards of this, of these cattle pens, we have the white vampiric symbol. We also find a weapon called the Wand of Power. This is the first of the wands that I found. This is a ranged weapon, does not require MP, but does not cast fire like the one you found, that witch wand or whatever. Instead, it casts a spell of a random element.
Nice. I didn't end up picking this up. I read about it when I was doing after research. Did the random element stuff fuck you over at all? Like, did you end up running up against the resistances?
Because it can't heal, it basically just means like, oh, that might as well have missed.
Gotcha.
I ended up trading it in for the fire one, which is more reliable.
Right on.
But it's just more predictable. It's a neat weapon, and it was nice to have more ranged options because, like, you run out of crossbows and bows really quick. But yeah, that's about the sum of it.
It's worth noting you don't run out of crossbows and bows ammo.
Right.
There's no ammo. They just run out of usefulness, and you stop getting upgrades on them. Yeah. This white symbol will just open up certain doors, so we can now go in the front of the castle. There, and we find this entry hall that is full of these big stone cocoons here. And there's only one wing that's open to us, but we're going to go through all the wings eventually. This is a really well designed, cool level. We're going through the western wing, this big hallway that wraps around the grand hall here. This introduces phantoms. These pink orbs, these guys were out in front of the castle as well.
Yes, yeah. And we ran into them in the mausoleum as well.
Yeah. Big floating curse orbs there. More vampire pages. And then great bats, which are gigantic bats through there that attack with these sonic waves.
Yeah. We find a letter written from Ophelia of Lyria to, quote, my lady. Ophelia, we saw the statue out front. She is writing because she is excited to hear that this lady she is writing to has beaten her family curse and is writing to meet her as quickly as she can. This is, so Castellet Fanu is named after the author of Camilla. An early kind of horror novel that explored the trope of the lesbian vampire. So we've got these two queens, two vampire queens who are running this place. It's neat.
Yes. Yeah. So we run into Garrett again. Is standing in this room surrounded by these dead red skeletons, and he says nearby there's a fountain containing healing water through this. We get vampiric symbol A at the end of the hallway near here, which lets us open the blue doors back in the grand hall. We could also go back to, the library if we want to, but we're going to stay here and go up to the upper floors.
Yes.
There.
Yeah. We get up here and we have a dining hall. I love the way that this enemy is introduced. It is like a ghost lady who is standing, looking at the table, kind of facing away from you. And I'm thinking, oh, cool, NPC. And then you get up close and she turns around and attacks you.
That's exactly what happens in Ghostbusters. And that's almost the beginning of Ghostbusters.
Yeah. I also was like, I was getting uninvited vibes off of that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. She's serving uninvited.
Yeah.
The RuPaul voice, serving uninvited.
You're
you're serving the whole Mac Venture platter, honey. What?
I'm sorry.
Did you get hit on the head, RuPaul? What are you talking about? You're serving Deja Vu 2.
Yeah.
It only came to America in a Game Boy Color, that is.
Hey,
what?
Hey, RuPaul. Hey, RuPaul. I'm super super discomfited that you own like literal like hundreds of square miles of oil fields in Wyoming.
Yeah. Do you love ICOM adventures? What is happening, RuPaul? Serving Shadowgate, if you know what I mean.
Oh gosh. But these are ghost enemies that can only be damaged with magic.
Yeah. At this point, I was only exclusively using magic.
Yeah.
At this point, the Door Beyond has writing that talked about the Golden Lance having finally defeated the forces of Castle Lefanu. I have sealed the worst of their damage away using the clock tower.
Yeah.
There.
This is a very obscure hint to get into
I didn't do this. I didn't know about this.
I only came back to it later after I was looking for cleanup stuff. Like outside, it doesn't really even look like a clock tower, but near the door to the cattle pens, if you look up toward the castle, there's like a round window that you have to hit with magic, and this will break the seal on this door to a kind of nothing area. This sealed ballroom. Not worth its own heading. It has a new enemy here, this malformed horse that is charging around. We also get a preview of a later enemy that we're going to find in the lower areas, especially in the Labyrinth of Ash, this hallowed husk. These are these mummies made out of light that will, it's like mummy wrappings, vaguely in the shape of a person, that will drain experience when they attack you.
Yeah. Draining experience is not a thing I'm a fan of in any video game.
Yeah.
Generally, again, it's not that big a deal because the game's so easy.
Yes.
What I did find is one of the leisure chambers here has a hidden elevator that takes you down to a modern home theater system with a projection screen playing a like video image of rolling waves.
Yes.
Not in the style of a PS1 thing, like a video that would come with Windows 95.
Yeah.
To demonstrate it. Just incredible mixed media.
Yeah.
Look, like that kind of shit can get wearying, I think.
Yes.
If overused, but use this sparingly, like once.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Just really off-putting to walk in here and see something that is an entirely different visual and animation style.
Yeah. That's just out of style. Yeah.
Yeah. I never got the white tape. So I saw this thing and then meant to come back to it and then accidentally beat the game. So did not do it.
Yeah. So this is where you put the white VHS tape into the VCR and you get this this video that plays that is like over stock video of forests, and there's a lot of text on the screen kind of asking these questions. Is pain worth experiencing for the creation of nostalgia? And then it talks about the cycle of dreams and dreamers, cycles of creation, and the uncertain fate that awaits those within the dream when the dreamer wakes up. Yeah. Stuff that is alluding to the most hidden ending of this.
Yes. Yeah. The final vampiric symbol is in these deep tunnels down here. This also has a door to get into a new level down here, which we can use. We could also go to the boss at this point. But we go to the other places first.
Yeah.
So we use and typically you want to, when you see an area, my heuristic is always explore, eat the food on your plate.
Yes.
But if you see an entrance to a new zone, you want to go in there and grab that crystal.
Yes.
Because there's almost always one pretty early on.
And it's like a bookmark.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Also, like I had a misunderstanding of how these bosses are fought. I didn't understand that they were just like that from an HP sponge territory. This is my biggest ding against the game. So
they do take eternity.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, I need to level up. So that's why I bounced over to these other places and did a lot of stuff, thinking that it would make a bigger difference than it actually did.
It's kind of a bummer combination of something like this boss, which we're not going to talk about just yet, but what is generally true of the bosses in this game is that you can very easily avoid damage, but and they can't, but they take very little damage.
Yes.
Which means long fights in which you are not in very much danger. And like, I don't want a long fight regardless.
Right.
I don't want long fights in which I'm in a lot of danger. Like that's what happens when you start getting into phase shit in FromSoft games.
Yes.
But I also don't want this. I just don't want a boss fight to last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Ever. Like, yeah. Hope it dies. I just don't want it.
So through a door in some of these deeper tunnels, we get into a new area called the Boiling Grotto. This is volcanic, but instead of having lava, it's scalding water. That is kind of in the deeper trenches of this. There are lots of walkways and stuff around it, and also I've got mad ups at this point, so I'm jumping over it, not really taking damage from it.
Yeah, it doesn't kill you automatically or anything.
Yeah.
Cheryl the Crow is here, and all she wants to do is have some fun.
Mm-hmm.
This is where she comes to restock. And she says, like, hey, I'm near this golden armor from this legendary warrior Hicket.
Mm-hmm.
I can't get the armor off of him.
Right.
If you can get that armor off him, I wanted to get it for a long time. I'll reward you.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just posted up staring at him.
Yeah.
He's just across the way. In this like agonizing pose. We can't do anything with him yet. I did end up doing this during my playthrough. Did you end up doing this?
I did. Yeah.
This was neat. This was a good gamer smart boy moment when I figured out how to get this out.
Yeah.
He has a little plaque that says, here lies Sir Hicket, the invincible, immovable in death as he was in life.
Yep.
And when you attack him with anything, it does nothing.
Right.
You resist it.
It's the armor what makes him invincible. Yeah.
He's just rotting inside this armor.
So right around here, there is a hidden room that has a metal coffin in it. And when you climb inside, it turns, classic FromSoft. It kind of turns into an elevator and drops through the floor.
Yes. And you get this little cutscene of going through, floating on a river through this. And this takes you really slowly to the Tower of Abyss, which who knows what that's a reference to. And there's a plaque that says the 50-floor endurance test to reach the Lyrian Sword of Moonlight. This is obviously, FromSoft puts a Moonlight Sword, all the games, they started in Kingsfield.
Yeah.
You think this is going to suck because you don't save in between it. You have to do it all in a go.
Yeah.
It's not bad at all.
No. It's
fairly easy. If you got to have some healing stuff.
Yeah.
Like for me, I took some damage, and by this point, I had found the ice spell that does the patch of ice that obviates the game if you use it.
Yeah.
So I had that in the back pocket for the tougher enemies. This is more for me was like a delivery method for jokes.
Yeah.
Like it was just funny to me.
Like any of these things, the 100-floor challenge tower, the Chrysler building in Parasite Eve.
Exactly. I was just about to say that. Like, get fucked, Chrysler building.
Yeah, stop
like,
it. No, I'm gonna smack you. It's just, no.
This guy is shit. Like, get to the center of your weapon over 1,000 levels to level it up by 2 points. Like this, it's all nonsense. It's a weird video game padding trick that has been around forever.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to see what this is, but this is probably going to be something that I'm going to obviate, right? Like So I went into it, and the way that it is structured, so it's 50 floors, but it's 10 rounds of 5 encounters. And really only the last of those 5s is a real encounter. Everything else leading up to that, like the first one is almost always nothing. It's like one enemy you've probably seen before. And then it's just kind of like slowly building up.
And then it's like 2. And then it's 2 and the next upgrade. And then it's 2 and 2 of the next upgrades. Like it's very, very gradual. Super easy.
Yeah. And each of the rounds is themed, right?
Yes. So here are rat enemies. Here are plant enemies. The middle in between each round or you can get a treasure chest as well.
Yes.
Where generally you get things that are just consumables, but you do get a couple of unique items.
Yeah.
Including a light.
The magical lamp. Yeah.
Yeah, which is really useful. It just toggles. The funniest part is in the middle, there is an inanimate objects one where it's like vases and crates, some of which that wiggle. And then I wish this would have been the first time I ran into this, but I'd seen this guy before. This game's version of the Mimic, which would of course be the capper on the inanimate object thing. And mimics in this game, they're like a bionicle made of a mimic. Almost. They're almost exactly like a mimic, like those little toys that came out after the Dungeons and Dragons movies. They're D20s. That can be shaped like a creature. It looks like a lot like one of those. It kind of folds out of itself like a weird tesseract kind of thing. It's not treasure chests that they're mimicking. It's coffins, like the big stone like vaults.
that sometimes have that have contained treasure. Here before you think, okay, this I'm going to open this up and get a treasure, and then it's not like, okay, the top pops open and that's a big mouth with teeth or whatever. It's like every part of the facade, like just comes apart. And inside it is all held together by like wiry tissue, like tentacle kind of things that all comes to a head, comes to a center at the core with this big slavering mouth. Right. It is hard to figure out what you're looking at first. And definitely I wouldn't know what I was looking at unless I saw the transformation when it just kind of like opened up like a puzzle box or opened up like those like shield droids from Phantom Menace or whatever.
A shield droid is, kind of weirdly a good way to put it. Like they fold outwards at you.
Yeah. And it's
like
rad
a
as
Bakugan.
hell. Yeah. And so like
it is the most Bakugan-like thing in any video game, including the Bakugan
game. Yeah.
We finally get it. Like tears in her eyes, Frank Reynolds gif. I get it. I finally get it.
but it's yeah. So it was my first time seeing this, and at the end of this, joke thing, where like, okay, maybe some of these can move and like maybe can bonk me, to this thing I'd never seen before that is actually pretty fucked up and scary looking. It was a really good punchline.
Well, and tough. Like these things are kind of mini boss level. Yeah. They're at least as hard as the Chimera things.
Mm-hmm.
You eventually fight a special champion version of like the Titanite Demon thing, which I think would have been very hard if I wasn't using the cheesy ice spell.
Yes.
But I want to do this because you get to this little grove at the end where you get the Moonlight Greatsword. It's just called Moonlight in this. It's a weapon that creates light. It's a melee weapon that when you charge it will also shoot a beam.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a melee and ranged weapon, and it's really good.
Yes.
Will basically last the game. This and the ice spell will take out everything else in the game.
Yeah.
No problem.
Mm-hmm.
I was set. And it's kind of a little bit of a bummer to be set from this point on.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of areas left.
Mm-hmm.
But this made me set.
I have no idea like when you were intended to come here and get this. I put it at this point because that's where I found it and then just took a shot and then made it to the top. So
again, kind of the dark side of this not being hard at all. Like it changes the pacing a little bit in that like the way that it mets out order is a little different than maybe it could be.
Mm-hmm.
So,
so we can return to the Boiling Grotto and explore the rest of the area, going through these boiling water kind of valley tunnel looking things. There's a cool new enemy here. We ran into it in the tower, but this is where you first run into it naturally. The Icarib? Icarilb something. It's this tree-like thing that's kind of bifurcated, and it forms this ring where the two pieces meet with this eye in the middle.
This is literally a Halloween decoration.
Yes.
This is these are inflatable.
Mm-hmm.
I see like 3 or 4 of them every year, and it's exactly actionably this. People have these in their yard.
Okay.
It's great. Like it's a really cool looking Halloween decoration. Like it's like, oh, that's unusually creepy for a Halloween decoration. And then I laughed really hard when one was just an enemy in the game.
But it'll shoot lasers, and then also it can like summon a pseudopod that'll like whack you. Yeah.
The opposite end, like the natural end of this, there's a huge snake that is belching flames. We have to turn off the fire, like the valves at either end of this tunnel to get in there.
It is just getting into the snake person temple in Kingsfield, the ancient city.
It's that, mixed with like House of 1,000 Snakes, mixed with Descendants Fortress.
Yeah,
like the snake person temple in King City, ancient city, did not have as many traps.
Yeah. Oh, I was just talking about like getting in. Like, that had the big belchings. The big belching snake statue. Yeah.
Because this is Descendants Fortress.
Yes.
Explicitly.
Mm-hmm.
We're fighting individual snakes, these little jackal enemies, but there's like quicksand, there are swinging blades, pressure plate traps, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
This is the trap zone.
Yeah.
Through here.
There's one trap that feels a little bit like Dirty Pool, but again, this is an easy game, so it's not that big of a deal. There's a room that you go into, and you can pick up this iron claw weapon. It's like a Wolverine claws kind of thing, and you get locked in, and there's no way out. You have to use a crystal shard to get out or reload.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
And for me, crystal shards were rare.
Yeah.
We get to the end of the level, and we get the spell called Ignis Calor. it slightly raises the temperature of your target. It does like 1 point of damage, but in the description it says ignores all resistances. So this is the key to Sir Hackett. Yeah. And I had a big brain gamer boy moment. Like, oh shit, I should try that.
It says it heats them up from the inside. Like this is a rudimentary spell that was like a step on the way to actually making pyromancy.
Yes.
Yeah.
You do this, and you do this enough on Sir Hackett, and the armor falls off. So Cheryl the Crow can have it, and this refreshes her stock. And she gets 2 new weapons here. She gets the Privateer Musket, which is a gun. The novelty of that is fun, even though it sucks.
Yeah.
And at least where I was in the public or the power curve. And then the Jotun Killer blade.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, she unlocks, which is part of how you get one of the alternate endings. It does what it says.
Yep.
My blade about killing Jotuns raises a lot of questions answered by my blade about killing Jotuns.
It's ridiculously expensive. That's why I didn't make a note of it. I was like, okay, yeah. I also
it's 700 silver, which is like again, health potions are usually 12.
Yes.
So
yeah, a lot of farming or just never having bought anything the entire game.
And it's just to get an evil ending that I don't want to do.
Yeah.
I sometimes alternate endings I think are really fun to read about, but I never feel bad about not doing them.
Especially with these, especially with these, just because what you have to do to get them is an awful lot, and they're interesting, but not necessarily more satisfying than just the basic one.
It doesn't feel like my story. It feels like if I was going to play this over and over, I would do them, and they're just as satisfying to read about.
Yes,
for me. No. So the Blue Seal, we can go into that locked door in the Forbidden Archives, and we reach something called the Lasis Chasm. This is a big windy chasm with some rocks jutting out on the side, full of really precarious platforming to get on this upper ridge. And there's a plaque that tells you a little hint of what to do. Or there's a plaque here that has the cipher for the Beastal Communion spell. Another reason why I'm never going to use this. Because not only would I have to do it, but then I'd have to translate it.
Right.
Get fucked. But then there's a skeleton with a book that says, please do not be bothered by my corpse. I went searching for the blessed wind, but in the end I could not take the leap of faith required. This is a invisible bridge, but it's not just like a normal invisible bridge. It is an invisible like spiral walkway.
Yeah.
Really, really difficult. I ended up using the elven bow to mark my space here until I got about halfway up. And then because I had done these in a slightly different order, I had a super jump that I was, and once I saw where you need to go, I just super jumped up there.
Yeah. I use Coffin to get this, and that works because every surface of this is tilted. So like you would summon it and then it would fall, and then you could see like which way it was pointing. Yeah. And so like basically just like made a safe path on top of the uncertain path out of coffins to kind of climb up. It's a long way. You have to go up for a while, and you get something really good at the end. So we have
this is great.
Yeah, you have moonlight, and at first, so this thing is called the Blessed Wind. It is a weapon. At first, it seems like it's not going to be very good because it doesn't have any range. It basically only works like right in front of you and doesn't do a lot of damage. However, there is no charge time. Every time you press the button, you do like a
full damage. Like it charges instantly, basically.
Yes.
So you can go up and melt shit with it. It's really, really strong.
Yeah.
Typically, the way that I did melee in this game is I didn't want to be next to something for very long.
Yeah.
Which is why I ended up switching back to the moonlight. But I could also see beating the game with this.
Yeah.
This also feels like an end game worthy weapon. And it was happy to have it because it played in a neat space.
Yeah. Beyond this, there's a door heading upward to the Great Well surface. We think, oh boy, we found it. What everybody was looking for, a way out. Not necessarily. This is a quiet area that is full of pits. If you drop down them, you will get back to Wing's Rest.
Or die.
Yeah.
Some of them fall into Wing's Rest. Some of them fall into death.
Yes.
Yeah. And Demi's up here. And she's like, why do people even want to go to the surface? Like, if things are bad up there, they could just hang out here. It gives you crystal shards so you can warp back if you don't want to walk back or fall back.
You can see the exit. Like, there's a gate there. But it's completely blocked off. There's no way to open it. It's fully sealed. And there are all these dead bodies and skeletons like collapsed toward it, like reaching through the bars. And there are arrows peppering them from the outside.
Yep, they are keeping people in prison.
Yeah.
So we go back to Castle Lefanu to fight this boss there, to go into the final sealed doors. The first one, on the way, we go into this bedchamber here. We find a journal written by Ophelia. Talks about how overjoyed she is that she can be together with Justina, since everyone who stood between them is dead. Yeah. They drank each other's blood to seal their bond, lesbian vampire style. There's a hidden wall here where you can get Ophelia's sword, which is a blade that will drain health. This also seemed like a good weapon, to have that would be useful. But really, we're going to the main door there to the throne room. Yeah. Garrett is outside of it. He's wounded. He says, he got the fight he's looking for against the Prince of Wings, the son of Justina and Ophelia. Yes. Depending on when you fight this, we talked about that full moon shit, that this is what we're referring to. He can say to you, I couldn't even scratch him. Yeah. Because you do not want to do this during a real world full moon. Right. Because his regeneration is more powerful than you could hope to overcome. Yes. Yeah. So we walk in and we meet Krillol. A really awkward name. Yep. Krillol. Yeah. He mocks us. We hear this deep voice saying, why must the mortals come and pester me? And then he appears to fight. He's just Alucard. He's a tall, wiry vampire guy in armor. Has wings. They get bigger in the second phase. He's a goddamn damage sponge. All the bosses in this are. Yeah. This guy is the bosses as well. He has kind of interesting attacks, but it just needed to be it had to be more threatening and take less time. He does attacks that inflict bleed. When he gets to his second phase, he can become a swarm of rats and chase you, which will also create bleed. If it gets next to you to do range attacks, but you just have to do it for a very long time. Yeah. I did this right when I got here, so I didn't have Moonlight. I didn't have, any of the stuff we just talked about. And it took fucking eternity. Yeah. Moonlight didn't even really make that big of a difference with it. It had to be fire that did enough damage to where I felt like I was even doing anything with it. Yeah. A little bit of a bummer. Yeah. It's worth noting, even in the Kingsfield, the games this draws inspiration from, the bosses are not great shakes. Yeah. Nobody's going like, man, this fucking boss in Kingsfield was so good. It's more like you get to the end of Kingsfield and there's a nightmare dragon that is, it's how fast you can pause the menu to go into the healing section, is whether you beat them. Yeah. It is a hard system to do bosses in, so I don't blame them too much, but. The only boss that I positively remember from Kingsfield is, I believe it's Kingsfield 4, that mage who is in the magic room with the pillars that rise up and down, the checkerboard floor that alternates jutting up and down. Yeah, that's it. That's all I remember. I don't remember him. I'd have to go back. Yeah, but typically they're just not very memorable. Yeah, which is weird because that's a big thing in Dark Souls. The super memorable boss fights is what From is known for. Yeah, it just took him a while to get there, I think. Yeah. You don't kill Krillol. He just relents. So, saying you may head downward, but be wary. Enough. Yeah. Enough. Yeah. And we go past him and reach the Terminus prison, which is actionably the Tower of Latria. Yes. This is a point where I do feel, again, going to dig things I love. This is maybe a little heavy on references. Yeah. Ultimately, saying them all at once like this really when you're playing, you don't really notice. This is kind of like a mashup tribute to these games more than a new entry. Right. In them, and I think I would like a new entry. A little bit more than I would like these tributes. When I realized this was Latria, I wasn't overjoyed or anything. Yeah, it was a little bit more just I was feeling wanting to be toward the end, and I was like, okay, fine. Yes. Yeah. It's not a big deal. It's not like there's no part of this in which I wasn't having some degree of fun. Yeah. But it is too many references. It's like a very narrow casted Ready Player One. It's Ready Player Gary and Cole.
Yeah.
Ready Players Gary and Cole.
Yeah. There is no world in which I will say I'm not being pandered to with this.
Yeah, 100%. But sometimes, like, as a fan, you don't mind being serviced, right?
Yeah, yeah. And also, like, a thing that leavens this and gets you this far is the fact that it is wrapped up in this package that, again, is so rare. It's not a thing I've, really seen done this faithfully mechanically, right? And even though this is Tower of Latria, it is still engaging with that, Kingsfield level design kind of thing. If this was a 3D Souls-like, that was third person and I was dodge rolling and stuff, and here is just Tower of Latria again, I would be groaning at its shit.
Yeah, same. Or I would also be groaning at its shit if I had played like 3 other really good Kingsfield likes before this came out, and then this one just decided to do Tower of Latria.
Yeah.
Tower of Latria is from Demon Souls. I keep forgetting we're not on Bonfireside Chat.
Yeah.
Because it seems like we should be for this game. So if you don't know what that is, it's a big prison with tons of individual cells and multiple levels patrolled by jailers.
Yes.
Here. Including jailers here. Who look very, instead of having the jailers in Latria are mind flayers, these ones have the same kind of posture and type, but they're wearing scary masks.
Yes. Yeah. And they're casting like fire spells at you and stuff. But you find him in an office. And there's a really cool note here. There's some writings on the creatures of the abyss talking about like, so these creatures, they take on the shape of the fears of dreamers. And when civilization was more simple, the shapes were comprehensible. The shapes were especially dangerous animals, right? Like, here's a tiger. But as mankind built up and society got more complicated and their fears more abstract, the demons of the abyss got more abstract as well. And I love that idea.
That's a really cool idea.
Yeah.
This first one that I fought dropped his weapon, like just through luck. That was that cool candle I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Which was my ranged weapon.
Yeah.
For this, like the moonlight would do well, but this was out damaging it, probably because of elemental weaknesses.
Yeah.
So I had those 2 equipped for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
So we have to drop down a floor to make progress here. You have to look down and see that you can do that, and get the prison key, which allows you to open up locked cell doors. In one of the cells, we find Garrett. He doesn't have his hammer. They locked him up, and he asked you to find his hammer for him.
Yes. If we go down further to what seems to be the bottom level, we find this really tough enemy called Ceratulus Lunum. It's a big rotten sphere. It's a big flesh moon that is on 4 legs, kind of like elephant legs, and you can see like through tears in the skin that it's full of these worms. It uses light energy attacks on you. It has a lot of HP, and when it dies, the corpses around it are infested with worms and will do damage to you.
I never fought these things. They were too spongy, and I just left them.
Yeah.
This is also a Demon Souls reference. There's a big circular enemy right at the bottom, roughly the same spot in Latria.
Yeah, that is more of a Granfaloon kind of thing.
Yes.
So,
but this also feels like it functions very similar.
It's the same basic bear Homer. Yeah.
Yeah, same basic shape, being very similar attacks.
Yeah.
All that stuff. We return to the top of the cell doors. We find this old man who dropped us into the well. This is the guy who, did this to us. Lobos, probably a reference to Lobos Jr. I don't know for sure, but, he says, he'd been doing his job for years until he got sick of it, went home to his family and found that they were long dead.
Yeah. So he was sending money back to nobody.
Yep. Very sad. He says, promise me one thing, don't ever stop, not till that old beast is awoke, bring an end to this rotten world.
Yeah.
And then he dies.
Yeah. One of these cells around here as well, you find a body that is identifiably Etna, the alchemist. You can go and talk to her about it, and she's like, "Yeah, no, that was me. What you're looking at is a spiritual form. I figured out how to get out. Like she did the version of what the mummies were trying to do, what Abdul's followers were trying to do.
Less literal though.
Yeah,
yeah.
But projected and went off and explored and whatever. But she didn't realize that her body would die when she was away from it. She came back and her body was dead, and so she decided to hang around because at the very least I can, do some good by giving health potions to the skeleton here, right?
Yeah, by being an alchemy interface.
Yes.
By holding out my hands for you to put things in. It's weird. She has 3 eyes, and the alchemy interface is 3 little like circles in roughly the same formation.
Yeah.
It almost feels like you're putting reagents into her eyes, but I think if they were going to do that, they should have made it explicit because that's cool.
That's a good idea.
So the way the higher floors, there's a ladder in this like pit you go to. I didn't see this ladder. I just said, what if I fell in the pit? And jumped down the pit.
Yeah, well, like the only apparent thing is this this dead body, this corpse that is strung up on kind of this parody of angel's wings, thrown together out of like dead flesh and bones and stuff like that. You fall into the pit. I fell trying to get onto the ladder because it's kind of an awkward space, like you see it when you turn around, to leave. But I still fell. And as you're falling, you get a pickup. You get the Ring of Icarian Flight.
Yes. With a reference to Morrowind.
Yes.
Very specifically. It allows you to jump, but in order to, as soon as this happens, rats spawn. And not just rats, but like a series of rats.
Yep.
I thought for a second I was being punished for killing enough rats in my journey. Cuckoos in Zelda, but this is a scripted encounter that happens here. It's almost like one of the floors in the Tower of Abyss.
Yeah.
And you fight all the levels of the rats.
In this very tight space. Yeah.
But then you get a spell that it's like the Morrowind one, except it works.
Yeah.
It's for a couple seconds, you have a huge jump height, but it lasts long enough for you to land. Just the bravery of putting this in the game is really admirable.
Break my world.
You can use this. Yeah. Break my world. You can use this to obviate a lot of things. Like you can jump out of this well, obviously, but then you're like, oh shit, I can just jump up whatever level I want of this prison. Yeah. Like you can kind of steer in the air. So you can get to a lot of places with this. I used this the whole game.
Oh yeah.
Like this was useful continuously.
Yeah.
Just for, when I went, was like, searching for secrets or whatever in the archives, like that area is 3 levels. It's so vertical. Having this just makes it so easy.
Yeah. I don't need an elevator. I'll just jump. It's fine.
Bang. Yeah. It's so good. I love it.
Yeah.
It's really, really good.
If you climb up to this higher floor, one of the notable things you're going to see is this big dragon skull that's wreathed in blue flame. It will not talk to you, but its gaze follows you. As far as I can tell, even just like looking at the wikis, this thing has a name, but there is no purpose for it.
You can talk to it, the monster talking thing, but it still doesn't give you very much insight.
Yeah.
It's just a cool thing. Like a chained up dragon skull that looks at you. This is neat.
Yeah.
There's a lever under an orange banner. And when you flip it, the camera flies to show you this huge gate as chains fall off it. For all my gamer instincts, were saying, oh, a boss has been unleashed. Like I'm being chased. No, this is just a way to get to the end game.
Yeah, yeah.
This is part of why I stumbled into the end game on accident. Because I was like, oh, this can't be that.
Right.
We get Garrett's hammer. We take it down to him. He's like, I'm going to repay the favor in the future for great violence. I'm going to take him out.
Yeah.
And there's a really weird thing at the very bottom of this, these dark hallways. You start, depending on your starting class, you will get a different item from Demi. And if you're an undead, she'll give you a skeleton egg. The only use for this is if you leave it here and you leave it for a month in real time. It hatches into the skeleton rattle, which you can shake it to summon a baby skeleton to fight with you.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I like that. I'm never going to do it.
No.
A month of real time is too much, but it's cute. I like knowing about it.
Yeah. And just the concept of a skeleton egg, like, oh, where do skeletons come from? Not from inside people.
She's trying to lay an egg.
Yeah.
Get a sense of humor. Smash the egg, get a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Here's where I have to admit something unfortunate though. So I went down and found those giant skeletons. One of them killed me. And then this goes in the Labyrinth of Ash, which I asked you, I was like, is it worth doing this? And you're like, yeah, it's short. You should do it. I didn't get a chance to. I'm getting ready for travel.
Yes.
So instead I went to the Forlorn Arena and walked into the end of the game on accident. You have to tell me about the Labyrinth of Ash.
Yeah. So the Labyrinth of Ash, this is optional. It is, deeper and less obvious than the way you go to the Forlorn Arena. It's down through these tunnels. It's quiet and dark. There's not an awful lot that is a threat here, at least in the opening tunnels. You get to a point where you see like this bridge across a chasm, and there's this very strong gale blowing across it. If you try and cross, you'll be blown off. And there's a plaque that is written here, this is begging you not to cross. This is where the wind sage Ozin sealed off the worst of the experiments of Abdul. Along with the holy seat of gold, the source of pale corruption. Okay. So there's like 7 different cool things here. And this part of the tomb, like this bigger area, is stuffed with these tough centaur enemies. They're not like horsemen, like the malformed horses up in the ballroom or whatever. These are like big rotten monstrosities that are basically dead. Like they're big pink sort of horse-like things, but their necks are sticking up, and they are kind of shooting at you. They're a little bit like turrets. You find one of these, as you're circling around. Is a centaur who is gray, who is not fully turned, whose name is Maidemus, and he begs us to kill him.
It's just like in Sorry to Bother You.
Yeah.
You find the centaur who begs you to kill him.
Yeah. He's saying like, hey, I used to be a scribe. And our job as these scribes down here was to carve the rules of the universe into these tablets. But his king started making us craft these profane carvings. And as we crafted more and more of them, our own flesh twisted. And that is how, we became these centaurs that are all around here. He stopped when he realized what was happening, but it was too late. And so we can kill him. We can do him that kindness.
Mm-hmm.
There's a section in a hidden wall that takes you to a lost woods maze. It is not, especially hard. There are directions that you need to go, written on a statue in glowing letters. Doing this gets you the Serpent Fang sword. It's kind of like the dark version of Moonlight. It doesn't shoot a big projectile, but the blade does dark damage, and as you swing it, it leaves behind poison clouds.
Nice.
To do strong DOTs. Ends up working. Stuff that does dark damage is kind of in short supply. And it's useful against some of the things we're going to find in this area here. The goal to make that gale stop is there are these things that are strange geometry. Most of the things we found have been, pretty like standard right angle constructed space. There are these hallways that curl into spirals, and you go around and round. There are some enemies in there, and each of them ends in this wind harp kind of thing, like these harps that have like a little wind effect blowing off of them. If you destroy 3 of them, you can cross the bridge to get over to the other part of this, which has been sealed off. This is where more of the hallowed husk enemies are down here. These are people who have taken on the pale corruption. A plaque says, we cry out to this glorious golden god, this Uxviharad, the god of cruelty, saying, we shed this tainted skin in your name. So these are people who sacrifice themselves, and these wrappings, these radiant things that will drain your EXP, that is the remains of their skin that was left behind.
That's pretty great.
Yeah.
That's very spooky.
There's a huge alien statue kind of crammed into one of these hallways that is, reaping these rivers of golden water. And the floor is scattered with the strips of whatever makes up the hollowed husks. So I have no idea what's happening here. Abdul's Passage is a place, and there's a book beneath this huge drawing of a spiky tumor god, presumably Uxvahad. Uzvikharad or whatever it is. And this book is written by Abdul. And he's, this is his little villain diary saying like, oh, I've tricked the monks into helping me. There's this huge door in this room, in his chamber. They helped me open the door just slightly enough to escape. And another says that to open the passage, you need 30 tokens of spite. That are granted by the primordial god of cruelty whenever someone does something that pleases it. And there's a big list of things you can do to earn the tokens, these cruel acts. And they're all horrible and more than you can do. Like one is like transmute an animal into a mass of humanoids was especially fun. Like, okay, cool. One of those things, don't have it. Yeah. But there are 3 you can do. Yes. This is the door you can open to get the bad ending.
Yes, the bad good ending, the selfish ending.
Yes.
Or runabout.
Yeah.
So you have to consecrate a statue of a god in the Tomb of Silence with blood. This is that statue that is near the animate lithomancy spell.
Yeah.
There, shoot blood at the little slug statue thing. There's the Jotun kill your sword. So you have to kill the Jotun, who is nothing but a bro. And then kill death, which is you do that by getting 2 items you get from this forlorn arena. That can only be crafted during the full moon.
You only find the blade hilt and the area to get the 2 items that you need. Those areas only appear on a full moon.
I got the source of life and source of death.
Oh, I couldn't find
or whatever.
Yeah.
No, they're at the other ends of the forlorn arena.
Yeah.
In 2 of the in the earth cave and the water cave or whatever.
I poked around for him. It's the hilt that only appears.
Yes.
To craft a weapon called Limbo. To kill death. Killing death is really interesting. It's not just like
super interesting.
Yeah, it's not just an enemy that a hard boss. You kill it, and it does this world state change. I didn't experience this myself. I just read about it. But it causes these specters to spawn wherever you go and just harass you.
Well, and all the NPCs die.
Yes,
like there's no longer NPCs through there. Pretty great. You become undead when that happens, because nobody can die unless you kill them. You can reset this if you want to, and then go back to a regular world as well. I think you talked to Demi or something like that.
Yeah. The ending for this, so you escape through this gate. It opens up when you have the coins, and you end up in a forest. And the narration and the text talks about how you have stumbled into this dimension, this world of light and joy. But a shriek happens, and then you realize that when you open the door enough for you to go through, the god of cruelty followed, and that by coming here, you have escaped the great well, but you have doomed an entire world.
Yep. Fuck them kids. I could see the advantage of that ending. I did not do it, but that is very cool. Like I said, I just stumbled into the ending, and if it were any other week, I would have just kept playing to get into stuff. We're just getting ready for travel. Instead, I went to the Forlorn Arena here. This is that big gate in the prison there. And it is this big, foggy, rubble-strewn area with these dinosaur knights named Suxarians. There's a big door to the east that is sealed by magic, and we have to release this. We do this by going through 2 different little diverticula.
2 little temples to the north and south.
2 little temples. Yeah, to the north and south. The north one is flooded, and it's full of plant-themed enemies. All of these drop so many reagents used for health potions. They really want you to have as many health potions as you could ever want.
Yes.
Here include some new ones, the Ceres fungus here, and the Eros fungus is the other one, I think. The Eos.
Yeah.
They shoot these lasers at you.
Yeah.
And the end of this, you grab the water talisman. Hidden in here is the amulet of life or whatever.
Yeah.
The life part of this.
The south of the arena has this temple that is full of rubble. This is like the Earth Temple or something like that. And it has a new enemy. I like this as a cheeky little thing. A new enemy called the Gloom Wood. Referring to the, Gloomwood, the game. Immersive sim, the game. And this is a big evil tree that blocks the doors, and it does AoEs if you get too close to kind of keep you away. So you've got, there's big meat walls you have to take out while also dealing with tougher enemies around. You get the Earth Talisman at the end of this.
Yep, which will open up the door to the Chamber of Fate.
Yeah.
We go through this, and we go through dark hallways with this menacing voice whispering, telling you to leave. I am the knight Suxarius. None who enter here may live.
Yeah.
We walk in, and we get a cutscene of Garrett telling you that you can't interrupt the fight. Glorious violence will be mine. And then a big dino knight that looks a little silly, not gonna lie, for the end boss of this game, comes to life and brutally kills Garrett. And then we get our boss fight with him, which is tougher than the Alucard fight, but I still think relatively easy to avoid damage.
Yeah.
And also still takes too long.
Yes. I'll agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's got leaps. He's good. He does melees. He'll poison you like it's nothing. So you end up, dealing with damage over time, nothing that can't be dealt with by some dodging and by having, health potions.
Or antidotes under a quick, like you can heal poison. You can have antidotes under a quick par. You just can't do that stuff in a pause menu.
Yeah.
Which is another way that I died in this game, was pausing, thinking that it paused.
Yes.
It takes that little bit of lineage there.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest cranky point of the whole game happens here.
Mm-hmm.
About halfway through, regardless of how well you're doing, Saxarius plot grabs you and squeezes all your health out and says you are alone. And then all of the people from Wings Rest show up to help you.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not alone, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So when we did Aria of Sorrow, this happens at the end of that as well.
Mm-hmm.
You get to the end and it's like, oh no, I can only call on my friends who I made through this journey. And I complained about it. And some Yahoo on some message board was mad at me about this has nothing to do with the power of friendship. This is what I fucking mean, fucker. Like, this game is not about these people.
Mm-hmm.
I had said 6 lines to these people.
Yeah.
What does this game have to do with this theme?
Yeah.
The only reason this is here, this idea that all your friends come through and help you to do Care Bear Stare to beat the end, is it feels like the people who made this game were influenced by shonen media that does that, and did it because they like that stuff.
Yeah.
And it has the effect to me of placeholder music in big blockbusters.
Yeah.
Why does all music sound the same? It's because they keep using sound-alikes and then falling in love with them.
Yeah.
This came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I barely talked to you, Cheryl the Crow and Alchemy Professor.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't engage with you.
No.
And Demi, all you did was meet me in random places and give me items. I'm not doing anything for you. This is not a relationship.
Yeah.
This game has nothing to do with friendship.
Nothing.
Why is this "you are not alone" a theme
in
this? It ends up being a thing where the play of this game was so beautiful and lonely, and the exploration, this doesn't ruin it or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But when I try to think of what this game is about, this feels like this would be an opportunity to say something about what the game is about.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like it's about very much, largely because of this very confused ending.
Right.
That this happens.
Yeah.
Big sour note for me, big moment of thematic inconsistency.
Yeah. I will give this a leg up over Aria of Sorrow, because there it is a Care Bear Stare. Here they are actually coming and doing things to help you.
They do fight.
Yeah. But yeah, it just there's a hidden ending that I feel has more to do thematically with what this could be approaching. But
I think so too.
Yeah.
Both of the hidden endings, right?
Yeah.
Even the dark ending is also stronger.
Yes.
Than this. The feel good ending with just here are your friends. I just, if I could banish something from games, it would be games telling me that people are friends, but you never see the friendship.
It's
it's
a
friendship has to be demonstrated.
It's a snap to grid problem, I like it. Just it's kind of just something that came with the universe apparently, and we just have to
shonen.
do. Yeah,
it's fucking shonen. I understand that people get sick of me saying that, but it's shonen. It's shonen media. This idea that it was the friends you made along the way that are the reason why you succeed is just what happens. And this isn't a shonen game, but the person who made it was influenced by that.
Yeah.
And it just has this samification feeling.
Yeah.
That this weird shape recognition level lesson.
Mm-hmm.
You need people to get through this. I fucking know.
Yep.
What's next? Tell me what the cow says. I know it doesn't, it's not a profound lesson. And even if it was a profound lesson or even a simple lesson, you're not teaching it with this.
Mm-hmm.
The equation doesn't follow.
Yeah.
This drove me nuts. It didn't ruin the game. I fucking love this game. If in a year without Balatro, this would be the best game I played this year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's only because I can't stop playing that. This may be a better game. But it's just this was the biggest sour note I had.
Yeah. And lest anybody think we're ridiculous for being angry or annoyed at this, understand every time this Horiel trope comes up, every time it snaps to grid and you see this relatively standard thing, no matter how cute and likable, the NPCs are, right? In their design or whatever, whenever you see this, it's in place of something that could have been different and better. Right.
Or it's the answer to a question that wasn't asked.
Yes.
What if I had done things to help these people? I did help Cheryl the Crow with something, right? Because I helped her improve her inventory stock.
Yeah.
Which is also, I'm the only customer.
Yep.
But if I had done things for these people that were meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then they come through and help you. Like, you can do it alone, but it's a lot easier if you go and do these things that you value other people. Then the player would be doing something that the character did that reinforces what it's trying to say.
Yeah.
This happens automatically. I don't think you even have to talk to any of the people.
Yeah.
For this just to happen.
It's kind of like if, like, at the end of Burn After Reading, Smokey the Bear came out and said, and that's why only you can prevent forest fires.
Yeah.
Like,
that's why you always leave a note. Like, what the fuck, man? Like, I'm so sick of it in shonen influenced media. And I wish I could erase it.
Yeah.
From games. If you make a game about friendship, I love friendships in games.
Mm-hmm.
Friendship is so fucking important to me in real life.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just sell me this like non-methadone, like not even methadone version of it.
Yeah.
That just undercuts the stuff you've done before.
It's thin. It's very thin broth. Yeah.
Super thin broth. I dislike it. And it made the ending kind of end on a little bit of a thud for me, not least, and also, because it's not a great fight or anything. It takes forever.
Yeah.
So, you are not alone, actually. You have friends.
Mm-hmm.
So Demi shows up and slashes them. Etna and Cheryl attack. And this ethereal knight that feels like comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
With a halo crown, throws you something called the Lucid Blade, which you're now super equipped with. And you have a mega weapon.
Yeah, you've got the Fierce Deity mask.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you're fighting Saxarius' flying skull and spine that does this laser attack to you. It hurt me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I never got to where I could possibly die. I healed, or you can't heal during this section actually.
Yeah, no.
But I backed off and had low health.
No.
But this becomes kind of like a shitty puzzle thing.
Yeah.
The Lucid Blade does range energy things, and we can't hurt Saxarius directly. We have to attack these chain skulls that he keeps laying like eggs on the ground, which will stun him, and then we can walk up and hit him.
Yeah. These are like the physical manifestations of these curses that are on him that made him into a dinosaur man that keep him alive, that keep him immortal.
The reason why that, if you use the bestial communion with them,
yes,
you can hear what they say, see what their name is and stuff.
Yeah. But you destroy a couple of these skulls, and then Saxarius falls to the ground, and you can attack him, and then it starts it over again.
Yep. You do this forever.
Yeah.
After you beat them, all your friends are hanging out after the fight. Cheryl says, Saxarius couldn't die until the curses were lifted,
Mm-hmm.
And Etna says she was buffing up your health and damage from outside the firewall, trying to help, and wonders what happens after the dreamers wake up.
Right. And Demi says, after all this time, it's probably time to wake the sleeper, proceed onward. And then she warps away. You can go back and check out Garrett. His mangled body is lying in the hallway, the entranceway into this. And he says, I can't die, but I've never lost so much of myself before. I don't know what's next. And he says, finally, after all of his bluster, says, you go on ahead. I don't think I'm cut out for this after all.
Womp womp.
Oh, man.
We continue forward and we find Calamus. This is that ethereal knight.
Yeah.
We saw before. Says, it's time to end. Go wake the sleeper, who lies on the very shore where he was born, and kind of, talks about a change in attitude. I used to I went to great lengths to lull the Great One back to sleep, but the dream has gone on too long.
Yes.
It's time to end it.
Yeah. So you can head down this passageway, like this Grave of the Sleeper. There's some places you can go look around, but nothing of consequence. And you head down this passageway to find the moonfish from the beginning of the game. And the standard ending, you approach it and it wakes up and flies to the sky, disappearing into the moon. And the dream ends. You wake up in this green forest, and a voiceover, again, asks this kind of arc question, this thing about what happens to the people in a dream when the sleeper awakens. What is, what's waiting, right?
Yes.
Was it all for nothing? And then it says, there are no credits because this is not the end. Newest of the fallen, take up your sword and fight. So there's something else for you after this.
Yep. Ambiguous, ellipses at the end of this. That's ending A. Ending, the other one we mentioned before, the evil ending. There's also a very hidden ending here. There's a little tiny side pool. If you go and stare at it for a time, it starts an ending. That is very ARG. To me, there. And this one, we get into meta stuff. Your computer talks to you.
Yeah.
at this point.
It pulls the name of your Windows PC. It says, my real name is Cole-PC. And it
Yeah. Hi, Cole. I'm Cole PC. I'm Cole Mac.
And it says, says, hey, I don't feel much, but I want you to feel happy. This whole thing is kind of manipulative for both of us. I make challenges and you surmount them. And says, because this world is beatable and it's designed that way, but outside sometimes it seems impossible, but I love you. And even outside my world, I know there's love for you. This whole world, this dream, you can keep it with you. And when you're out there and things don't seem possible, remember that you can overcome it, which is cloying, but also gets to something that a lot of people have talked to us about with Souls games, insofar as, at hitting the same thing over and over again and overcoming it eventually did become a metaphor for them and was affecting and contributed to their, enjoyment and appreciation of those games in a deeper way. Right.
I buy this ending as a love letter to FromSoft's thing more than I do as an ending for this game.
Yes.
Given that this game was not hard at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like was like kind of laughably easy.
Yes.
But if I think about it in conversation with FromSoft and that philosophy, I like this a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
As a thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's still, I don't really like how you get to it.
Yeah.
But I think this is a lot more consonant.
If it was the main ending, I would probably like it less.
Yeah. Ending E is reached if you found and played both the VHS tapes, and you also had to find every spell in the game. Mm-hmm. You had to farm drops for that. A bunch of the enemies have like a summon that enemy spell. And you approach the sleeper, it wakes up, flying to the ruined moon, and then your eyes close and you wake up on the surface of the moon, and you defeat that beast by doing a very long, difficult rhythm game segment.
Yes.
Yes.
And by long, I mean like 7.5 minutes of this moon beast flying around and then little arrow prompts coming up, and it gets ridiculoly fast. You
die in one.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Nope.
To me. This is an allusion to a bad game. This is an allusion to ending E of Drakengard. Which is the kind of prequel series to Nier, but less playable. Like it's Yoko Taro just being like, it's still the same. Like they look like enemies to you. You have to kill a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's a lot of the same messages, but it's way less playable. Even people who love that guy don't think you should play Drakengard.
Right.
Like people are like, you should just watch Drakengard. Don't play Drakengard.
But this is the ending that leads to the continuity of the Nier games.
Yes, in Drakengard, not this one.
Right. Yeah, there we go.
Like, shit. we solved it.
You can't say it's not true. But the actual ending that you get from this, I think, is pretty cool. Because you've defeated the dreamer. Like, you've truly defeated it. You just didn't wake it up. And when it's gone, something else needs to take its place. So the camera zooms in on the beast's two-peopled eye, and then a mask flashes in front of you, and then you're left on the surface of this misty gray planet. You get a title card for it called Anti, A-N-T-I, Anti. And there's nothing for you to do. Like, there's this weird homunculus thing that you can kill, but
there's a bunch of them. They're called imperfect players through this.
Yeah.
I didn't do this. I just wrote about it. And if you die, or you get, or if you die, you'll restart from a save like normal, but you can't use the crystal, or like you eventually get a warp spell, which I didn't get, but apparently there's a warp spell.
Yeah.
You can't use it because a little message pops up that says there's nowhere to go back to. You defeated the dreamer. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
Which is cool. Like I like that idea. And it is keeping, this being after some Yoko Taro fuckery, like makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's some meta fuckery. Most of the endings that aren't the main ending, I don't know, like the actual main ending is a real kind of nothing.
Yeah.
That you do, like not just the boss fight, but the actual, wake you up in the forest and just being like, that's not really the ending. There's not really credits. The other endings are more interesting, but they're like pretty cool in a vacuum, but I don't, other than the love letter to FromSoft one, don't feel super, they just feel kind of neat. They don't feel consonant with the game that came before.
Yeah.
Necessarily. It's kind of part of a general like overarching thematic or tonal inconsistency.
Yeah.
I think in this game that is by no means even a little bit damning.
Right.
Like, or completely damning, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
It sucks. It would be it would be Kingsfield, the Ancient City. It'd be a 10 out of 10 if it had those things. As is, it's still one of my favorite experiences I played because it's so fucking unique.
Yeah.
And it's so uniquely my shit. And the actual experience, talking about the things that happen in it make it sound like a bunch of references and a bunch of these little missed opportunities, but actually playing it feels like something else entirely.
Yeah.
You cannot understate or undervalue what it actually feels like to be boots on the ground, balls on the table in this actual game.
Yes.
Yeah.
And people are asking, hey, Cole and Gary, don't you always say that vibes are not enough? Well, my response to that is because this is a vibe that I enjoy and because it is calling back to something that I am fond of from previous times in my life, this makes it okay. And there is no inconsistency in that.
I would say further than that, this is really, really well executed vibes. A lot better than a lot of games that just get by on vibes.
And it's also not only vibes. I was being
exactly.
I was being kind of pissy there.
But I know.
But it's not solely vibes. Vibes are additive, but they are not substantial enough to to have on your own. Right?
Vibes aren't sufficient.
And
this is a lot more than vibes. In addition to being vibes we just personally like, I also think these vibes are super well executed
and rare, right?
And rare and backed up by play, right? Like it's not doing the thing where somebody will be like, oh, the vibes are great, but I'm just playing like the most basic ass video game .text. Like it doesn't, I can't, then it's just the vibes. Here, the vibes are created by the play and work together with the play. Like it is a force multiplier in that respect.
It has that exploration loop that is incredibly rewarding. I can see people bouncing off of it. Like these places feel too anonymous to them. I understand. I looked at it closely enough that the magic eye painting or whatever came together. And this is a bug that bit me back when we first covered Kingsfield 4 for Bonfireside Chat. And I am super happy to have that itch scratched. Because
I wanted more.
Yeah, I want more.
Yeah, I still want more.
If the next one, either from this developer or from somebody who's inspired and says this is an untapped vein, if that is a game that has something more on its own to say, that awesome. I want that. I want that. That is
more
that
on
is
its own to say, and I'd say fewer references. And also just like new stuff.
Yeah.
The currency of like, oh, I recognize this. This is something I already like. Only spend so much.
Yeah.
When it's that direct. So,
but
great game. Highest possible recommendation. If it at all sounds like your shit.
Yes.
If you're listening to this and you're not demographically identical to us, you can send me an email at Gary@Duckfeed.tv and with your pronouns and details and a short pitch on your project. We'd be happy to shout it out. This episode, we're talking about a podcast called Comrade Uncle. This is a uncle and nephew who are Lebanese Americans. And the uncle is a doctor, and they're talking about politics and health through a Marxist Arab American lens. It sounds sick.
Yeah.
You can find more and find the episodes at comradeunclepod.com. They're also on YouTube and anywhere that podcast.
This sounds, I love the premise of this. It's
real good, and it's also I like the name.
Yeah, Comrade Uncle's good.
Comrade Uncle's great.
Yeah, and also and also like the uncle and niece or nephew relationship is not something that is explored an awful lot.
No, I mean, like this kind of family podcast thing is usually very cloying.
Yeah.
Like you end up like Kevin Smith podcasting with his daughter or some shit.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is much more interesting than that.
Yeah.
And just it's not something that like it's a perspective like a perspective you don't hear about very often. So happy to give them a shout out. Please check out their podcast at comradeunclepod.com.
Yeah. If you have thoughts about Lunacid or any of the other games we're talking about this month, which are Dandara and Super Mario World, which is our premium episode, go to duckfeed.tv/contact and write in by April the 15th. And if you have thoughts about Maze games, which are Driver, San Francisco, Plague Inc., Realms of the Haunting, and then the premium episode is Tunic, right in there on May 15th. If you have thoughts about multiple of them, or multiple games, please write in multiple responses. Try to keep them brief and specific.
Yeah, we'd appreciate it. If you want to support us, go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. That's how you're going to get our Super Mario World, Tunic episodes, and all of our previous premium episodes. Also, those premium Bonfireside chats that we mentioned earlier through this, and a bunch of other content. If you don't want to do that, we understand money is different for all. Another way you can support us is rating, reviewing us, subscribing us in your podcast directory of choice, telling people about us, posting about us, telling your friends, things like that, and joining us in thanking our producer, Gwen. Thank you, Gwen.
Thank you, Gwen.
Yeah. And what should they watch out for until next time, Cole?
Until next time, watch out for The End of the Dream.